Hare Krishna, welcome to this episode of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And today we will be discussing, we'll be continuing, in fact, the childhood pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, reading from the Ādi 14th chapter, 83rd verse onwards. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णकरुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So it's been a while since we did the Chaitanya Charitamrita classes. So we're continuing from 1483. So 1482 we have finished here. There were some demigods who were coming and offering obeisances and offering prayers. That was what we have heard. Oh, we have here Dimitri Prabhu today. Welcome, Prabhu, after a long time. All right, so 1483. एक दिन मिश्र पुत्र चापल्य देखिया धर्म शिक्षा दिलो बहु भर्त्सना करिया. On another occasion, Jagannātha Miśra, seeing the mischievous acts of his son, gave him lessons in morality after rebuking him greatly. Bhartsana. रात्रे स्वप्न देखे एक आशी ब्राह्मण मिश्रे रे कहोए किछु सरोष वचन. On that very night, Jagannātha Miśra dreamt that a Brahmana had come before him speaking these words in great anger. मिश्र तुम्हें पुत्रेर तत्व किछुई न जानो भर्त्सन ताड़न कर पुत्र को रिमान. My dear Mishra, you do not know anything about your son. You think him your son and therefore you rebuke and chastise him. मिश्र को हे देव सिद्ध मुनि केने नय जैसे बड़ा हौक मात्र अमरत नय. Jagannath Mishra replied, this boy may be a demigod, a mystic yogi or a great saintly person. It doesn't matter what he is, for I think he is only my son. पुत्रेर लालन शिक्षा पितार स्वधर्म आमिना शिखाइले कोई छे जनी बेधर्म मर्म. It is the duty of a father to educate his son in both religion and morality. If I do not give him this education, how will he know of it? विप्र कहे पुत्री यदि दैव सिद्ध होय स्वतः सिद्ध ज्ञान तबे शिक्षा व्यर्थ होय. The Brahmana replied, if your son is a transcendental mystic boy with self-effulgent perfect knowledge, what is the use of your education? Purport. The Brahmana Jagannath Mishra saw in his dream told him that his son was not an ordinary human being. If he were a transcendental person, he would have self-effulgent knowledge and thus there would be no need to educate him. मिश्र को हे पुत्र के ने नहे नारायण Tathapi pitara dharma putrera shikshan. Jagannath Mishra replied, even if my son is not a common man but Narayan, still it is the duty of a father to instruct his son. এই মতে দুহে করেন ধর্মের বিচার বিশুদ্ধ বাৎসল্য মিশ্রের নাহি জানে আর. In this way, Jagannath Mishra and the Brahmana discussed the principles of religion in the dream, yet Jagannath Mishra was absorbed in unalloyed parental mellow and did not want to know anything else. This is very nice. So, purport in Srimad Bhagavatam 10.8.45, it is said, Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is worshipped with exalted hymns by all the Vedas and Upanishads and by great personalities through Sankhya Yoga in the mode of goodness, was considered by Mother Yashoda and Nanda to be their own little son. Similarly, Jagannath Mishra also considered Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu his beloved little boy, although he is worshipped with all veneration by learned Brahmanas and saintly persons. So, there's a beautiful verse. This one. This is by Raghupati Upadhyay. He's a great devotee. He composed this verse. He said, Shrutimapare smritimitare bharatamanye bhajantu bhavabhitaah ahamiha nandam vande yasyalinde param brahma. He said, those who are afraid of material existence worship the Vedic literature. Some worship Smriti, the corollaries of the Vedic literature, and others worship the Mahabharata. As far as I am concerned, I worship Krishna's father Maharaj Nanda, in whose courtyard the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, is playing. This was later included in Sri Rupa Goswami's Padyavali, 126th verse. So this is a beautiful verse. See, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Vedaischa sarvair ahameva vedyah. So in all the Vedas, I am to be known, I am to be found. But without the mercy of the spiritual master, one cannot find actually Krishna, even after researching through the entire Vedic literature. So that's why Raghupati Upadhyay, he says, Smriti mitare, Shruti mapare. What is that? Shruti mapare, Smriti mitare. Bhajantu, Bharatamanye bhajantu bhavabhita. So let some worship Shruti, Smriti, and some worship the Mahabharata to find Krishna. But I know where Krishna is. He is in the courtyard of Maharaj Nanda. Let me worship Nanda Maharaj. So, in other words, this is the meaning is what is that? Vedeshu durlabham adurlabham atma bhakto. What is that? I think Brahma Samhita 5:34 maybe. Is it? 33. Yeah. अद्वैतमच्युतमनादिमनन्तरूपम् आद्यं पुराणपुरुषं नवयौवनं च वेदेषु दुर्लभम् अदुर्लभम् आत्मभक्तौ गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि. Vedeshu durlabham. So it's almost impossible to be attained by study of the Vedas. He is not to be found in the study of the Vedas. That's paradoxical, isn't it? So in one place, Krishna says, Vedeshu sarveva ahameva vedya. But here, Vedeshu durlabham adurlabham atma bhakta. So that means what? Vedas, what is the use of Vedas then? No. What is that? Shvetashvatara Upanishad. Yasya deve parabhaktir yatha deve tatha gurau. Tasyaite katitha hyartha prakashante mahatmanaha. Now, Vedas, Krishna is there in the Vedas. In fact, Srila Prabhupada always said, in every page of the Srimad Bhagavatam, you can find Krishna personally present. So, but why some people cannot, even in Bhagavad Gita for that matter, every page of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is there. But why people cannot find him even after looking through every single page of Bhagavad Gita and memorizing every single verse of Bhagavad Gita? Why is he not found? Because Naham Prakash Sarvasya Yogamaya Samavritaham. So he's hidden, he keeps himself hidden to non devotees. Whereas devotees can find him easily. So, in other words, one has to um, take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master and through him understand. Because yasya deve parabhakti yatha deve tatha gurao tasyate kathitha hi arthaha prakashante mahatma. So we have to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. Only then can the Vedas reveal its true meaning. I think the other day we were reading, right? Where we were reading, which article or which was it? The Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's article. Where we were reading that even material, yeah, yes, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur about Bhaktivinoda Thakur. There he says that even normal sounds, uh, materialistic sounds, and the transcendental sounds, for the devotee, he always finds Krishna in both. Whereas for the non devotee, material sounds and even transcendental sounds cannot show him Krishna. Hmm. So this is the thing. So the key is devotion. Therefore, in the Bhagavatam, Chatushloki Bhagavatam, Krishna says very clearly, if you see 2.9.31, Shri Bhagavanuvacha Jnanam Paramaguhyam Me Yadvijnana Samanvitam Sarahasyam Tadangam Cha Grihana Gaditam Maya Sarahasyam, devotional service. Rahasya means actually secret. Sarahasam, with secret. What is that secret? The devotional service. Tadangam, necessary paraphernalia. Grihana gaditam maya. So this is actually most confidential. What is most confidential? Krishna says, I will speak to you now, Arjuna, the most confidential knowledge. And then what he says? Man mana bhava mad bhakto madhyajimam namaskuru. Remember? So what is the most confidential secret? In 18th chapter, see, 64. Guhyatamam, he says. Sarvaguhyatamam bhuyah shrunumaya paramam vachaha. Paramam vacha means the supreme instruction. Hear from me. Sarvaguhyatamam, the most confidential of all. Ishtosime dridhamiti tato vakshamite hitam. Krishna says, because you are my very dear friend, I am speaking to you my supreme instruction. The most confidential knowledge of all. This is Rahasyam. The most supreme Rahasyam. Hear this from me, for it is for your benefit. And what did he say? Manmana bhavamad bhakto madhya jimam namaskuru mame vaishyasi satyam te pratijane priyosime. This is the most confidential. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you're my very dear friend. And next, he says, and he continues, how to do this manmana bhavamad bhakto? All these, offering our homage unto Krishna, bowing down before him, becoming his devotee. What does that all mean? How is it done? Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam praja. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami masucha. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. This is the most confidential instruction to these two verses. So, Sarahasyam Tadangam Cha Grihana Gaditam Maya. You see? The personality of Godhead said, knowledge about me as described in the scriptures is very confidential and it has to be realized in conjunction with devotional service. The necessary paraphernalia for that process is being explained by me. You may take it up carefully. See, it has to be realized in conjunction with devotion. So, Vedeshu Durlabham, Adurlabham Atma Bhakta. So, one may think that, oh, so I don't need to read the Vedas, I can just do service and I will understand. Vedeshu Durlabham anyway. We cannot understand Krishna through Vedas. So, what is the point of reading the Vedas? No, that's not the point. Because you cannot do devotional service, and there is another verse for that. What is that? Um, um, Disturbance to society. What is that? Um, श्रुति स्मृति पुराणादि पांचरात्र विधिम विना ऐकांतिकी हरेर भक्तिर उत्पातायैव कल्पते. Alright. Yeah. This is from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatra Vidhim Vina Aikantiki Harer Bhakti Utpatayaiva Kalpate. Devotional service of the Lord that ignores the authorized Vedic literatures like the Upanishads, Puranas, and Narada Pancharatra is simply an unnecessary disturbance in society. So we cannot have, oh, Vedeshu Durlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakta. So I'll just be an Atma Bhakta or Bhakta without Vedas, without Vedic literature. No, no, no. We have to perform devotional service in terms of the Vedic literature, and that is also confirmed here in the Srimad Bhagavatam 1 to 12. तच्छ्रद्दधाना मुनयो ज्ञानवैराग्ययुक्तया पश्यन्त्यात्मनि चात्मानं भक्त्या श्रुतगृहीतया. The seriously inquisitive student or sage, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, realizes that absolute truth by rendering devotional service in terms of what he has heard from the Vedanta Shruti. This is perfect. Um, this is the perfect description of what is being explained here. So he has to Sarahasyam Tadangam Cha Grahana Gaditam Maya. He has to understand Vedic literature. Jnanam Paramaguhyam me tad yad Vijnana Samanvitam Sarahasyam Tadangam. So this knowledge of the Vedas is to be understood in conjunction with the devotional service according to the authorized scriptures under the direction of the bona fide spiritual master. Then you will have complete understanding of everything. And what is the complete understanding? To find Krishna. Now, so although it is said that Bhagavad Gita, is most purifying, Bhagavatam is most purifying, devotional service is most purifying, shelter of the spiritual master is very necessary. But how does this all correlate? This is how it all correlates. We have to perform devotional service according to the Shastra Vidhi under the shelter of the bona fide spiritual master. Shelter means what? Oh, I put Prabhupada's feet like this and I'll. No, no. Shelter means to follow the instruction. That is when we will have the full fruit of realizing Krishna and actually experiencing Him. So that's why Raghupati Upadhyay, he said, Shrutim apare smritim itare bhajantu bharatam, what is that? Bhajantu bharatam bhavabhita ahamiha nandam vande yasyalinde param brahma. So they are all trying to find Krishna in Shruti, Smriti, and Mahabharata and all. I prefer to worship Nanda Maharaj because Krishna is to be found there. So this is the so he doesn't want to read Mahabharata and Shruti and Smriti. Is that what Raghupati Upadhyaya is saying? No. Because Nanda Maharaj has realized all the purports and intricacies of Shruti, Smriti, Purana, Itihasa, everything. He has attained the perfection of all that, Shastric study. So, in other words, we cannot take shelter of these Shruti, Smriti, and everything on our own, but we have to take the shelter of a pure devotee, and then we will be revealed this Shruti, Smriti, and what is the meaning of all this. Otherwise, we cannot. It is very confidential. Krishna is so perfect. The message is end to end encrypted. And the decryption happens only if we, you know, um, take shelter of the bona fide spiritual master who is a pure devotee of Krishna. Otherwise, we can read the Bhagavad Gita, the same Sanskrit, and I can be a Sanskrit scholar on top of that, and still I would not understand. And there are so many examples of it. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan was a great Sanskrit scholar, but he completely misunderstood Bhagavad Gita. It's encrypted. The message is encrypted, and the decryption is by devotional service under the guidance of spiritual master, according to the injunctions of the Shastras. This is the secret. Hmm. So, now in this today's this verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, yeah. So Jagannath Mishra, now in the dream, this Brahmana, Jagannath Mishra and this Brahmana were having a debate on religious principles. Now, both are right, both are right, but Jagannath Mishra is much higher than this Brahmana. You see, the Brahmana is, um, from a from an ordinary point of view. I mean, from a advancing devotee, from a progressing devotee point of view, he's perfectly. The instructions are perfect for such a person, but all these moral instructions were falling on deaf ears when Jagannath Mishra was hearing them. He's There is a very peculiar thing in this, that despite all knowledge that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu may be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that's why Jagannath Mishra says, even if he is Narayan, still it is the duty of a father to instruct his son. So, Jagannath Mishra has come to a point, or not come to a point, he is of that nature because he is Nanda Maharaj. So, he is on a level where even knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead does not matter anymore. His relationship as father to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or Krishna is overriding everything. That mood of parental love, Vatsalya Rasa, is so strong that it overrides everything, even knowledge that he is Narayan. I must do my duty, not just duty, ordinary duty. It is my service. That is my relation with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that he is my son, no matter what you say. Just like the gopis, whether he is Narayan or what, it doesn't matter. He is somebody we love. That's it. Conjugally. So that's all that matters to the devotee. That relationship is what he cherishes as more important than anything else. And it's not in defiance that, oh, even if he's Narayan, he's my son. So I will instruct him. You cannot say, I will tell Narayan what to do. It is not coming from a place of pride. It is not coming from any of that. It is that rasa. Being very এটা শুনে দ্বিজা গেলা হয় আনন্দিত মিশ্র জাগিয়া হইল পরম বিস্মিত. Being very pleased, the Brahmana left after talking with Jagannath Mishra, and when Jagannath Mishra awakened from his dream, he was very much astonished. बंधु बांधव स्थाने स्वप्न कहिला শুনিয়া শুনিয়া সকল লোক বিস্মিত হইলা. He related the dream to his friends and relatives, and every one of them was very much astonished to hear of it. এই মতো শিশু লীলা করে গৌরচন্দ্র দিনে দিনে পিতা মাতার বাড়ায় আনন্দ. In this way, Gaurahari performed his childhood pastimes and day after day increased the pleasure of his parents. কত দিনে মিশ্রপুত্রের হাতে খড়ি দিল অল্প দিনে দ্বাদশ ফলা অক্ষর শিখিলা. After some days, Jagannātha Miśra inaugurated the primary education of his son by performing the Hate Khodi ceremony. Hate Khodi means, they make them write. Within very few days, the Lord learned all the letters and combinations of letters. So, purport. The 12 phala or combinations of letters are called Repha, Murdhanya, Na, Dantavya, Dental, Na, Ma, Ya, Ra, La, Va, Ri, Ri, L, and Li. L. I don't know how to pronounce that. Almost is never used. Sometimes it is used. Hate Khodi is the primary educational beginning. At the age of 4 or 5 years, on an auspicious day called Vidyarambha, marking the beginning of primary education, there is a ceremony worshipping Lord Vishnu, and after that, the teacher gives the child a long chalk pencil. Then, guiding the hand of the student, he instructs him how to write the letters of the alphabet A, etc. by writing big letters on the floor. When the child is a little advanced in writing, he is given a slate for his primary education, which ends when he learns the two letter combinations, which are called phala, as mentioned above. So in Bengali it is phala, and Sanskrit it's phala. बाल्यलीला सूत्र एक कोइलो अनुक्रम इहा विस्तारी आच्छेन दास वृंदावन. This is a synopsis of the childhood pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, placed herewith in chronological order. Vrindavan Das Thakur has already elaborately explained these pastimes in his book Chaitanya Bhagavat. অতএব এই লীলা সংক্ষেপে সূত্র কইল পুনরুক্তি ভয়ে বিস্তারিয়া না কহিল. I have therefore made only a brief summary. Being afraid of repetition, I have not elaborated upon this subject matter. Shri Rupa Raghunatha Pade jar ash Chaitanya Charitamrita ko hai Krishna Das. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya, Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishnadas, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, following in their footsteps. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Ādi 14th chapter, describing Lord Chaitanya's childhood pastimes. So that's it. Is that all our class is? That's like 25 minutes into the class. 28 minutes. That's the shortest class we've had. Should we continue the 15th chapter? Please let me know. Let's see how many verses are there in the 15th chapter. Doesn't look like many. Only 34. See? Maybe we can finish the 15th chapter also. I don't know. Should we? Okay, please continue. Please go on. Okay. Just started. Okay. So 15th chapter, Pauganda Lila. Pauganda means, from about 6 years to 10 years old, around that time. 1 to 5 is, what is that? Bal Lila. What is that? What is that? Pauganda Kaishora. Wait, 1 second. Kaumara, yes. Kaumara, Pauganda, and Kaishora, yes. So, 15th chapter. A synopsis of the 15th chapter is as follows. The Lord took lessons in grammar from Gangadas Pandit. and became very expert in commenting upon grammar. He forbade his mother to take grains on the Ekadashi day. He narrated a story that Vishwarupa, after accepting the sannyas order, invited him in a dream to accept sannyas also, but the Lord refused and was therefore sent back home. When Jagannātha Miśra passed away, the Lord married the daughter of Vallabhacharya, whose name was Lakshmi. All these events are summarized in this chapter. So, Pauganda Leela, I don't know, is it until his sannyas or until his marriage? Anyway, so 15 chapter first verse. This is the signature Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. The first verse of every chapter is a Sanskrit verse, and then he starts off. Kumanaha sumanastvam hi Kumanaha sumanastvam hi yati yasya padabjayoh sumanorpana tam chaitanya prabhum bhaje. I offer my respectful obeisances under the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya because simply by offering a flower at his lotus feet, even the most ardent materialist becomes a devotee. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. जय जय श्री चैतन्य जय नित्यानंद जय अद्वैत चंद्र जय गौर भक्त वृंद. All glories to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all glories to Lord Nityananda Prabhu, all glories to Advaita Acharya, and all glories to all devotees of Lord Chaitanya. पौगंड लीलार सूत्र कोरे गणन पौगंड वयसे प्रभुर मुख्य अध्ययन. Let me now enumerate the activities of the Lord between the ages 5 and 10. His chief occupation during this period was to engage himself in study. पौगंड लीला चैतन्य कृष्णस्याति सुविस्तृता विद्यारंभ मुखापाणि ग्रहणान्ता मनोहरा. The pastimes of the Lord during his Pauganda age were very extensive. His education was his chief occupation, and after that, his very beautiful marriage took place. So, at what time was he married? At what age? Before 10 years old? Let's see. Maybe more than that. I don't know. गंगादास पंडित स्थाने पढ़े न व्याकरण श्रवण मात्रे कंठे कैल सूत्र वृत्तिगण. Wow. When the Lord was studying grammar at the place of Gangadas Pandit, he would immediately learn grammatical rules and definitions by heart simply by hearing them once. Purport. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that the Lord was given lessons by a teacher named Vishnu and another teacher named Sudarshan. Later on, when he was a little grown up, he was under the care of Gangadas Pandit, who taught him grammar of a higher standard. Anyone serious about studying the Sanskrit language should first learn grammar. It is said that simply to finish studying Sanskrit grammar takes at least 12 years. But once one learns the grammatical rules and regulations very nicely, all other scriptures or subject matters in Sanskrit are extremely easy to understand, for Sanskrit grammar is the gateway to education. So, this is what our education should have. But although, again, Sarahasam Tadangam Cha, so it is not that because Sanskrit is to be understood. I mean, if the grammar one understands, one can understand everything easily, then how come the Vedic literature is not understood by the non devotee? So, that Krishna knows how to encrypt, even if he knows Sanskrit. So, in the same words can be twisted this way and that way. So, Krishna will guide the materialist to interpret the words in a different way so as to suggest something else than devotional service to Krishna and something else than the personality of Krishna, and they may come to impersonal conclusions. So this is something we have to understand. But anyway, the point here is Sanskrit grammar takes about 12 years to master. Um, but once the grammar is known, one can understand everything nicely. So there are grammatical rules. And definitions. There are sutras. Panini Sutra. Panini was the greatest grammarian. I mean, until Jiva Goswami. Jiva Goswami is not as popular now. Um, but maybe he will be in the future. But Jiva Goswami's grammatical rules, which is Harinamamrita Vyakaran, is apparently superior to even Panini's Ashtadhyayi. And I actually bought the Harinamamrita Vyakaran. That's how big it is. Two books here. This is the case that it comes in. So here are two books. And this is volume 2, volume 1. So these two together is only, it's not the full Harinamamrita Vyakarana. You know, in this there are so many, so this is like the condensed version of it. This is the condensed version of it. The real version is much longer. So in the real version, there are about 3,400 or something sutras. But in this, there are about 1,200 sutras, which are the most important sutras. Um, but that itself is this voluminous. And if you see, where is the. I don't know if you can catch it on the camera here. You can see here. I don't know, the camera is catching. It's a bit. I think barely you can see something there. You see the 368 here? So that is a sutra, one line in Sanskrit, and then the word to word meaning, and then the the translation, and then the explanation, Vritti, Amrita, Samshodhini. So in this way, there is so much explanation of each and every rule of Sanskrit. So these are the sutras. So each sutra is explaining or defining a rule that needs to be followed. So like that, Panini's Ashtadhyayi is the most widely read version of Sanskrit grammar. And of course, there are others also who wrote on Sanskrit grammar. So Jiva Goswami studied all of them, all the different Sanskrit scholars and he presented in a much more um, intuitive or much more intuitive way and very natural progression, and he connected everything to Krishna. So it is by far the most superior, supreme, I can say, um, grammatical rules, grammar. In fact, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also was doing that. He used to teach grammar to his fellow students, junior students, by using Krishna's names. So Jiva Goswami's book is actually based on this pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, where he taught grammar in using Harinam. Because ultimately, all grammar, all Sanskrit, all language culminates, the perfection of such linguistic study culminates in the descriptions of the Lord. So if we learn grammar and everything, it should be always connected with the Lord. That is the proper grammar. It's not that, oh, that was quite innovative, something, it was something novel. Not just novel. In fact, that is the purpose of all grammar. It's not something like, oh, that was cute. No, it's not just cute. It is the purpose. It's the only purpose of learning all grammar. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he used to, Gangadas Pandit Sthane, Padena Vyakaran, Shravana Matre Kantha Kailo Sutra Vrittigan. So, that is the meaning of this. He would immediately learn grammatical rules and definitions by heart simply by hearing them once. Of course, this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So once he listens, and then that's it. That's in his memory. Actually, he's already in his memory. He's just saying it. Whatever Gangadhar Pandit learned also is from him actually, because he is the Paramatma. He is the one who created Sanskrit and everything, every other language as well. अल्पकाले हयला पंजे टीकाते प्रवीण चिरकालेर पडुया जिने होइया नवीन. He soon became so expert in commenting on the Panji Tika that he could win victory over all the other students, although he was a neophyte. Purport. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says there was a commentary on grammar named Panji Tika that was later explained very lucidly by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. अध्ययन लीला प्रभुर दास वृंदावन Chaitanya Mangale Kaila Vistari Varnan. In his book Chaitanya Mangal, which later became Chaitanya Bhagavat, Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur has very elaborately described the Lord's pastimes of study. Purport. The Chaitanya Bhagavat Ādi Khanda chapters 4, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10 are a good reference for the studious pastimes of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, this is beyond the scope of this book. I would like to, of course, go there and kind of study them. But we will continue our Chaitanya Charitamrita. Maybe one day we can do Chaitanya Bhagavat. So, but this is very interesting. And actually, he was not only studious, he was also very naughty at the same time. I think all those things are mentioned in those chapters. एक दिन मातार पदे करिया प्रणाम प्रभु को हे माता मोरे देहो एक दान. One day Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fell down at the feet of his mother and requested her to give him one thing in charity. माता बोले ताई ताई दिबो जा तुम्हें मागिबे प्रभु को हे एकादशी ते अन्न ना खाइबे. His mother replied, "My dear son, I will give you whatever you ask." Then the Lord said, "My dear mother, please do not eat grains on the Ekadashi day." Purport. From the very beginning of his childhood life, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu introduced the system of observing a fast on the Ekadashi day. In the Bhakti Sandarbha by Srila Jiva Goswami, there is a quotation from the Skanda Purana admonishing that a person who eats grains on Ekadashi becomes a murderer of his mother, father, brother, and spiritual master, and even if he is elevated to a Vaikuntha planet, he falls down. On Ekadashi, everything is cooked for Vishnu, including regular grains and dal, but it is enjoined that a Vaishnava should not even take Vishnu Prasadam on Ekadashi. It is said that a Vaishnava does not accept anything eatable that is not offered to Lord Vishnu, but on Ekadashi, a Vaishnava should not touch even Mahaprasadam offered to Vishnu, although such prasadam may be kept for being eaten the next day. It is strictly forbidden for one to accept any kind of grain on Ekadashi, even if it is offered to Lord Vishnu. It's quite a strong statement. So, he was teaching these things. It is a little bit interesting that his mother was not already following the rule of Ekadashi, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had to tell her. Of course, this is to highlight his pastimes and his greatness and how he taught. Using his mother, he taught everyone else. That example that Prabhupada gives, that the mother-in-law teaches the daughter-in-law by chastising the daughter in front of the daughter-in-law. So when a daughter-in-law newly comes into the house, so the mother-in-law, usually mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, there are a lot of fights. So a lot of drama happens, and the man is sandwiched between his mother and his wife. Anyway, that has been the subject of many soap operas in India. Now, a good mother-in-law would teach the daughter-in-law the customs of the house by correcting or chastising the daughter, so that the daughter-in-law watches that and understands that, okay, this is how it is done here. So in that way. But nowadays I think it doesn't work like that. The mother-in-law will take care of her daughter very nicely, but she will chastise the daughter-in-law. So Anyway, so Krishna uses his own personal associates to teach others. Just like Arjuna was so called in a dilemma. How can a person who is with Krishna be in dilemma? When you're facing the sun, Krishna Surya Sama Maya Andhakar, Jahan Krishna Tahan Nahi Maya Radhikar. So how can there be, Krishna is like the sun, how can there be darkness? So it is not possible, but it was made possible only to teach us Bhagavad Gita. He is using his own devotee to speak to us. Yeah. One second. Okay. Shachi kohe na খাইব ভালোই কহিলা সে হইতে একাদশী করিতে লাগিলা. Mother Sachi said, "You have spoken very nicely. I shall not eat grains on Ekadashi." From that day, she began to observe fasting on Ekadashi. Purport: it is a prejudice among Smartha Brahmanas that a widow must observe fasting on Ekadashi, but a woman who is Sadhava, who has her husband, should not. It appears that before Lord Chaitanya's request, Sachimata, being Sadhava, was not observing Ekadashi. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, however, introduced the system that a woman, even if not a widow, must observe the Ekadashi day and must not touch any kind of grains, even those offered to the deity of Vishnu. You know how wonderful is Prabhupada and his books. You know, yesterday, or not yesterday, was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday that I was having this conversation with one Mataji here. She came to do some seva, and then she was telling me, she's from Odisha. So she was telling that my mother always argues with me, saying that why are you following all this Ekadashi? This is only for the widows. You're not a widow. How you want to become one or what? You know, why are you following? This is very inauspicious. You should not follow Ekadashi. I said, no, that's nothing like that. You know, what is that? But now here, Prabhupada actually mentions, he answers. So this is something unique to Prabhupada's books, and so when we have a question, something like, of course, I did not think about it much. I thought it was a foolish thing to for her to say. So, but I did not know there was actually a custom like that. So this is in the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as well. It's a prejudice among Smartha Brahmanas that a widow must observe fasting and Ekadashi, but a woman who is Sadhava, Vidhava means widow. Vidhava. Vidhava means widow. Sadhava means who has her husband. Should not fast on Ekadashi. Okay, that's interesting, you see. Now I know where it comes from, you see. It's a Smartha Brahmana thing. It appears that before Lord Chaitanya's request, Achimata being Sadhava was not observing Ekadashi. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, however, introduces the system that a woman, even if not a widow, must observe Ekadashi day and must not. So it looks like it is introduced by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the system where a woman who is Sadhava should also practice Ekadashi and not just for a Vidhava. And I do not know how that, because Prabhupada says here in the beginning of the purport, it's a prejudice among Smartha Brahmanas. So probably it was the custom that everybody should follow, and somehow it became distorted and became known that only Vidhavas must follow for the woman. I think for the men, everybody must follow, and the woman, something, I don't know how it works. So somehow that thing was changed, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu set it right again. That is what I understand from what Prabhupada mentioned here. And that's what actually Krishna does anyway, right? What did he say? Evam parampara praptam imam rajarsho vidu sakale neha mahata yogo nashtah parantapa what is that? Saevayam mayatedya. Saevayam mayatedya yoga proktah puradana bhaktosi me sakha cheti rahasyam hetaduttamam. So, whatever was, so initially Krishna establishes religious principles, and then in the course of time they become distorted, and they change over time. Not change, they become, you know, the pure principles of religion are not followed. They become contaminated over time. Yeah, that's the thing. And it becomes lost. And then Krishna comes and revives. It's not that Krishna every time does something new. Oh, he introduces something. No, he's actually reviving the same thing. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu introduced a system. Here it is said that a woman, even if not a widow, must observe the Ekadashi day. So now, although he introduced, it doesn't mean that he brought in something new. Of course, he can always bring something new, and he's Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has all the right to do so. But Sanatana Dharma is eternal, and he teaches all the same things every time. It's only that we forget, and that's how we become disconnected with that. So he introduced again that principle of um, fasting on Ekadashi. तबे मिश्र विश्व रूपेर देखिया যৌবন कन्या चाहे विवाह दिते करिले न मन. Thereafter, seeing that Vishrupa was a grown-up youth, Jagannath Mishra wanted to find a girl and arrange a marriage ceremony for him. Vishrupa is the brother of Vishwambhar or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. विश्वरूप सुनि घर छाड़े पलायला संन्यास करिया तीर्थ करिवारे गेला. Hearing of this, Vishrup immediately left home and went away to accept sannyas and travel from one place of pilgrimage to another. Now, here, this is what materialists cannot digest. Even devotees cannot digest. um, they like devotional service until the point where it is like complete, it goes against so-called moral principles, familial moral principles, these kind of stuff. So they think devotional service should always be performed, you know, in peace or in obedience to the parents' wishes and everything, and at the same time do devotional service. They think this is devotional service. But sometimes, for higher purposes, there is disobedience. It's not exactly um, by intention wanting to disobey, but it is just that the parents are disobeying Krishna's instruction, and when that happens, the child cannot just, or the son or daughter, they cannot just keep on following something which is already known to be wrong, even though the parents may, you know, uh, advocate it, advocate for it. So he has to use his discretion according to, of course, Sadhu Shastra Guru, and if need be, he has to disobey sometimes. And Vishwarupa, of course, there is nothing wrong. He could have always gotten married, and he can be still a devotee. Sometimes they ask, even devotees ask this kind of questions. That you know he could always be a devotee and marry and still be a devotee, right? I mean, get a devotee girl. It can be done like this also, right? So why this path of renunciation? So we must understand. Pravrittiresha bhutanam nivrittistu mahaphala. Yes, one can be devotee by marrying and everything. But ultimately, that marriage has to lead him also to renunciation. It's not that, yeah, one can marry and be a devotee, yeah. But what about after that sannyas? Okay, one can marry. After that, one day he has to leave his wife and take sannyas. Now, at that time, what will happen? Oh no, actually, she is devotee only, no, so can stay together and do it. Can do like this. Why you have to leave like this at this age and this and this? Maya will come at every single step. There's not one moment that Maya will leave us alone. She is always there. So, under different kinds of pretexts, one is encouraged to take up material entanglement. So, if one is to be becoming devotee of Krishna, why should one be so focused on, oh, must get married, must? Why must? What is actually the must? The must is we have to become devotees of Krishna and make our life successful. That is the must. That is the mandate. That is the most important thing to do in life. Everything else is incidental. Oh, okay, if it helps, it's fine. But if one can be without this family encumbrances, and especially for a man, because he can actually execute it. A woman, unfortunately, it's not possible for her to do it all alone. It's not possible. Now, some women may argue, no, it is possible. We can also do it. So what is there? You know, that kind of woman who may want to try it alone, and they will not be able to surrender as much as is required. They will not be able to. So, it's not just staying alone or not marrying. Oh, marriage is entanglement. So, without marriage is much more, I can be focused. But what does actually focus mean? What does focus actually mean? That means cent percent the instruction of the Guru and surrendering to the temple authority and working under the direction day in, day out, night in, night out. So that level of um, surrender is not possible for a woman. It's not that she cannot surrender, she can surrender, but she can do it very well in the if she gets into the household grahastha ashram and surrendering to the man. And also, she has to be with a man. That's why there is no, in Vedic system, there is no women's ashram per se. It's not that all women stay together, like, no, it doesn't happen. There's no such institution in the Vedic social structure given by Krishna. And it's not, I don't know, some people think we are misogynistic when we speak like this, but we are just stating facts. If I was a woman, I don't know what my brain would be, but if I'm interested in the truth, I would say the exact same thing. Why should I change? Oh, you are saying it comfortably because you're a man, you can say like this. For women, it's very discouraging, or this and that. It doesn't have to be discouraging. It doesn't have to be. If I follow the instructions of my dharma as a man or as a woman, if I do my duty as is ordained, then it will not be discouraging. It will be discouraging when I don't follow or I don't want to follow. That's when the discouragement comes. Because I want to fit in a way in which I should not. I try something else than what is set as a system by Krishna. I want to try another way. So that's where the disconnect happens. Why can't I just agree to follow? Although it may be a little difficult for me to process in the beginning, if I just agree to follow whatever Krishna has said, okay, I will I will follow. So that would be much more simpler and much more happier, and easily one can progress rather than fighting the whole system and then no, it is to be done like this. You see, Prabhupada started women's ashram, brahmacharani ashram. He had women stay in the ashram. Now they quote these things that Prabhupada, oh, he had, in the West, some women ashram, like women were staying. Yeah, it was a fact. Women were staying together. But you know how difficult it was to make them stay together in the ashram, in the temple? I remember Sundagopal Prabhu. It's not just Sundagopal, he was in America, and that time also there was this women's ashram of those women who were not married yet. And in the West, the family life is pretty much not so stable. Sometimes the parents are divorced, or single parents, or parents are like very this thing materialistic and meat eating, and then sometimes even if everything is good at 16, 17, the children usually go away from home, so the family life is not very stable there. Now, so to cater to that, because there's no other place for these girls. So Prabhupada, allowed them. But it was not a permanent. Okay, it's like a brahmachari ashram, like make them into sannyasinis and this. No, 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 not at all. Get them married as soon as possible. That was the mission for the brahmacharya ashram. So that was only a temporary hold for them. It's an adjustment. We cannot quote such adjustments as the rule. We can't do that. That's misquoting, misrepresenting Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada did many things as adjustments until a more stable situation can be arrived at, a more stable structure can be arrived at. Okay, so we can't quote such adjustments as the way in which Prabhupada did, and that's how it should be done, and that's how it should continue all along. So we should understand that part. Okay. So I mean, sometimes people don't. There are some questions. I will get to them after this session. So if one is able to advance in Krishna consciousness and brahmachari, then he remains a brahmachari. If he thinks he can make more advancement as a grihastha, that means he cannot remain brahmachari. Okay, then he can get married and he can move on. But Krishna consciousness should never be given up. And those who are wanting to remain brahmachari, they should be always encouraged. They should not be discouraged. "Arey, why are you staying as brahmachari? You could marry now." Of course, there is a usual way, especially women, they think more like that. Um, they may even ask questions like that. But maybe out of ignorance. But when one is surrendering and when one is wanting to dedicate himself as a full time like brahmachari, he should be more and more encouraged, and he should be shown the absolute naked form of the material world, which is very very ruthless. Actually, the so-called attachment of woman is all you know. It's a camouflaged danger. It looks all good and hunky dory, but it's not. But of course, not everybody can do. Few only can do. It doesn't matter. It's not that those who cannot do are failures. They're not. Because, ultimately there has to be arrangement for the woman also, right? They have to get married. And there will have to be some men who, many men who have to get married. So that the women get chance. So, but anyway, one has to increase one's Krishna consciousness. That is what is required. So anyway, Vishwarup was not into it at all. They were trying to find a girl for him, and Vishwarup just left. So who is actually Vishwarup? It is said that he is also Balaram. Although Nityananda Prabhu is also Balaram, Vishwarup is also Balaram. Now, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very renounced. I mean, the renunciation is one of his opulences. He's not beholden to any custom or anybody. He can just do whatever he wants. He's completely aloof and he's completely renounced. And those who take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they are also like that. They are also very opulent in renunciation. It's a great opulence to be renounced. শুনি শচী মিশ্রের দুঃখী হইল মন তবে প্রভু মাতা পিতার কইল আশ্বাসন. When Sachimata and Jagannātha Miśra heard of the departure of their elder son Vishrup, they were very unhappy, but Lord Chaitanya tried to console them. So he did not go and shout at his brother, "Hey, you are making our parents unhappy. What is this? What are you doing?" No, he consoled the parents. Cool down. So one must know how to behave actually in these situations. What is actually right, what is higher, what is lower principles. We must know, and we must know whom to actually console. It's not that, hey, Vishwarup, please, go and console Vishwarup. That is the worst thing you can do. Somebody is taking sannyas, no, 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 it's okay, it will be okay, we will all cooperate, we will make sure, your family life will be good, don't worry, you come back. And that's not what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did. He did not negotiate with the Vishwarup. He negotiated with the parents, or rather consoled them. See? ভালো হইল বিশ্বরূপ সন্ন্যাস করিল পিতৃকুল মাতৃকুল দুই উদ্ধারিল. My dear mother and father, the Lord said, it is very good that Vishwarup has accepted the sannyas order, for thus he has delivered both his father's family and his mother's family. Purport. It is sometimes said that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu disapproved of the acceptance of the sannyas order in this Kali Yuga, because in the Shastra it is said, अश्वमेधं गवालंभं संन्यासं फलपैतृकं देवरेण सुतोत्पत्तिं कलौ पंच विवर्जयेत्. We have nice reference here. Brahma Vaivarta Puran, Krishna Janma Khanda, 185.180. This is good. I need to go and see. In this age of Kali, 5 acts are forbidden: the offering of a horse in sacrifice, the offering of a cow in sacrifice, the acceptance of the order of sannyas, the offering of oblations of flesh to the forefathers, and a man's begetting child in his brother's wife, which is also called Niyoga. Here it is called Devarena Sutotpattim. It is also called Niyoga. A man's begetting children in his brother's wife. Now, what is this? This looks immoral, right? But no, it was a perfect moral thing to do, but not in Kali Yuga. In Kali Yuga, the minds are not pure enough to conduct these things in a proper state of mind, and they eventually end up in something else, which is, we don't want to talk about such things in this class. But in other yugas, this used to be done, and Pandu, Dhritarashtra, and Vidura were products of Niyoga or Devarena Sutotpattim, because Vichitravirya already died out of tuberculosis, and he had 2 wives. What is that? Ambika and Ambalika, and both of them were without issue. That means both did not have any children, and therefore there was no king that is to succeed after Vichitravirya, the son of Shantanu. And the other brother, brother of Vishwarup was Bhishmadev. Not Vishwarup, what is it? Brother of Vichitravirya was Bhishmadev. Bhishmadev already took a vow of not engaging in any sex. He's a brahmachari. So Vyasadev was called by Satyavati. So he was the elder brother of Vishwarup and Bhishmadev, because Satyavati begot Vyasadev from Parashar Muni before her marriage. So of course that also looks immoral, where Parashar Muni, had a relation with her, and he brought forth Vyasadev. But we are not in any way, how to say, ready to comment on these things, because Parashar Muni retained Satyavati's virginity even after he had relation with her. It's very exalted. I mean, these kind of personalities, we cannot understand these kind of things. But anyway, Vyasadev was thus the elder brother of Bhishmadev and Vichitravirya. They were half brothers. So now, Bhishmadev was not related to Satyavati, but he was related to Shantanu, but from Ganga. Shantanu and Ganga were married, and they had relation, and then he was the 8th son. The 7 sons died, and the 8th son. So the same father. So in that way they were related. So anyway, Vyasadev, being the elder brother in that way, was called upon by Satyavati to do Niyoga, this Devarena Sutotpattam. This is only done when for some reason there is no child from the brother and his wife, or if the brother dies and there is no son, and if the son is absolutely necessary, then this is done, Niyoga. And also the way Niyoga is done is apparently The brother, so husband and wife, and this is the brother of the husband. So he, even while having sex, he does not see the naked form of the woman. He does not see. So there is cloth, there is, and both bodies are, um, what, not bathed. I think in fully what applied ghee is applied, and then he doesn't see the full naked form of the woman, and he has to have this thing only for the matter of procreation, and after that, that's it. There is no more involvement than that. So this neo. So these things, I mean, how can it be done in today's day and age? I mean, minds are so gone. It'll end up in something else. And Ashwamedham Gavalambham, offering of a horse in sacrifice, offering of a cow in sacrifice. And actually, I want to say something about this because I actually wanted to make a full video on this. Um, but since this is a hot topic, Vivekananda. Should I bring out all of that now? 9:37. It'll go along. It'll be quite a bit of a digression. So anyway, I'll just make another video on that because I want to address this. Um, there are a lot of things to say about this. Um, okay, I'll just say the gist of it. So Vivekananda says, because I mean the hot topic is because I mean this, you know. Okay, I'll just quote. Let me actually do it. This is what happened. Like somebody messaged me. Okay, somebody messaged me saying this. Because now Amogulila is banned in ISKCON because he spoke against Vivekananda, right? So now somebody who's following this Vivekananda, he quoted some references. So somebody of some devotee, I mean bhakta, he was having this argument with some Vivekananda follower, and the Vivekananda follower quoted some verses. Now let me read that out. Manusmriti chapter 5 text 30 says, "It is not sinful to eat meat of eatable animals, for Brahma has created both the eaters and the eatables." Manusmriti 5:35 states, "When a man who is properly engaged in a ritual does not eat meat, after his death he will become a sacrificial animal during 21 rebirths." Rigveda 10:85-13 declares, "On the occasion of a girl's marriage, oxen and cows are slaughtered." Rigveda 6:17-1 states that Indra used to eat the meat of a cow, calf, horse, and buffalo. Vashishta Dharma Sutra writes 1134 writes, "If a Brahmin refuses to eat the meat offered to him on the occasion of Shraddha or worship, he goes to hell." Swami Vivekananda says thus, "You will be surprised to know that according to ancient Hindu rites and rituals, a man cannot be a good Hindu who does not eat beef." This is Vivekananda's word. All I hear from vegetarian promoting people, this person now is arguing with this our bhakta. All I hear from vegetarian promoting people are sayings or quotations either from Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita or Krishna centric Vaishnava texts. These are only 5,000 years old at most. There are 60 types of Gitas that I personally know of, and I've read four of them. Bhagavatam is one of the many Puranas, and Puranas themselves don't match with each other. And because of that, Joto Mat Tato Path is ideal. This is his argument. So, how do you counter that? So, what I did, I actually went to the Manusmriti because I know these people know how to misquote. And in fact, in another place, Vivekananda says that this stoppage of cow slaughter and all this started only after Buddhism. Buddhism, they preached ahimsa paramo dharma, non-violence, and after that, it is the Buddhist influence that cows are not slaughtered and animals not slaughtered, vegetarianism. This all started After Buddhism, before that, Hindus were eating everything. There is no distinction. That is what Vivekananda was saying. So, um, just wait. I'll take out this thing. Okay. So this is the fifth chapter. Let me read out. It is a bit lengthy and it's a bit, I don't know. I can't make it too big. I will lose. I don't know. I don't think you can see this right at this point. Can you see this? Please tell me in the comment section. Is this text size, you know, visible to you all? You can do one thing. I don't know if it does that. I can share my this screen. No, it's not so visible, right? Let me open this up. Um, just give me a few seconds here. I will open up this thing on the computer. Maybe we can go through that then. I hope it will work. Let's see. Okay. Now, okay, so how is it now? Is it better? Please let me know in the comments. Is this better now? Please let me know in the comment section. I think this is readable now. Okay, I will. Yes, better. It's not ideal still, but I think it can be read. Okay, let me actually read this section of the Manu Samhita, Manusmriti, from which these quotes were taken. So 5.1, and sometimes it may sound contradictory, still smaller. So Nitya is saying still small. Let's see if we can stretch this even more. Um, no, that's too much. The thing about this is I can't. How does it look now? Oh, that's still cannot read, huh? Yeah, it's too small on the phone screen. I can understand. I can't do much about this now because if I make it bigger, then it will go out of beyond screen. So kindly bear with me, or I'll see if I can. Okay, I think I cannot do much bigger than this. Okay, so I will just read from here. Please bear with me though. Just a little bit can be made better. A little bit. Okay. So that's about as best I can do. Okay, so now let's read this. And sometimes the instructions may sound contradictory, but they're not. Um, but let's read it. So this is fifth chapter of the Manu Samhita, um, text one, and we will read until like 40 something. Yeah, I'll just read the translations. The sages, having heard the duties of a Snataka, thus declared, and mind you, these translations are given by probably a non devotee who is a Sanskrit scholar who may not be Paka Vaishnav. So, the way a pure devotee would interpret certain words would translate it might be slightly different. Yeah. But anyway, we can get quite a clear picture even now. Okay. The sages, having heard the duties of a Snataka, thus declares, spoke to great soul Bhrigu, who sprang from fire. How can death have power over Brahmanas who know the sacred signs, the Veda, and who fulfill their duties as they have been explained by thee, O Lord? Righteous Bhrigu, the son of Manu, thus answered the great sages. Here, in punishment of what faults death seeks to shorten the lives of Brahmanas. In punishment of what faults death seeks to shorten the lives of Brahmanas. So, what will shorten the lives of Brahmanas? What are their faults? Through neglect of the Veda study, through deviation from the rule of conduct, through remissness in the fulfillment of duties, that means neglecting the fulfillment of duties, and through faults committed by eating forbidden food, death becomes eager to shorten the lives of Brahmanas. Then it goes on to say garlic, leeks, and onion, mushrooms, and all plants springing from impure substances are unfit to be eaten by twice born men. So here it is the verse which says this garlic, leeks, and onions, mushrooms. One should carefully avoid red exudations from trees and juices flowing from incisions, the selu fruit, and the thickened milk of a cow which she gives after calving. So the red exudations are like, from trees, like the sap of trees, and juices flowing from incisions or cuts of the tree. So that should not be taken. In the selu fruit and the thickened milk of a cow. In fact, I remember when I was small, in Telugu we call it jonna palu. Jonna palu means milk. Jonna palu means after giving birth to a calf, the cow will give very thick milk, very thick. And the milkman used to sell us this thing, sell people, and we also got it. I did not particularly like it. I remember when I was a small kid. Um, and I do not know. I think my mother did not know at the time, or what. So we are actually not supposed to take that. According, this is one of the forbidden foods, thickened milk of a cow, and it's very very thick, honestly. So next, rice boiled with sesame, wheat mixed with butter, milk and sugar, milk rice and flour cakes, which are not prepared for a sacrifice, meat which has not been sprinkled with water while sacred texts were recited, food offered to the gods and sacrificial viands, the milk of a cow or other female animal within 10 days of after her calving, that of camels, of one-hoofed animals, of sheep, of a cow in heat. That means cow in heat means um, who is ready to mate. Um, the milk of a cow, okay, of one-hoofed animals, of sheep, of a cow in heat, or of one that has no calf with her. The milk of all wild animals excepting buffalo cows, and the milk of women, and all substances turned sour must be avoided. So even milk and sugar, milk rice, flour cakes, which are not prepared for a sacrifice. I mean, even vegetarian things not prepared for a sacrifice should not be taken. And meat which has not been sprinkled with water should not be taken. That means it sounds like meat which is sprinkled with water can be taken, right? For Brahmanas. And what is this? Okay, let's understand. Let's read the whole thing, then we'll get a clearer picture. Okay. Then Among things turned sour, sour milk and all food prepared of it may be eaten. Likewise, what is extracted from pure flowers, roots, and fruit. So here, roots are also can be taken, and root taken means root. You have to uproot the plant. That means the plant will be killed. So although it is also alive, but this is part of the eatable food stuff. Let him, then 5:11, let him avoid all carnivorous birds and those living in villages and one hoofed animals which are not specially permitted to be eaten, and the Titibha, Parajachana. I don't know what is that. I think it looks like another bird or what. Then the sparrow, the plover, the hamsa, the Brahmani duck, the village cock, the Sarasa crane, the Ragudala, the woodpecker, the parrot, and the starling, those which feeds striking with their beaks, web-footed birds, koyasthi, those which scratch with their toes, those which dive and live on fish, meat from a slaughterhouse and dried meat, the baka, the balaka crane, the raven, the kangaritaka, animals that eat fish, village pigs, and all kinds of fishes. So these are all not to be, is to be avoided. That means meat from a slaughterhouse and dried meat should not be eaten. That's not for, uh, that's not edible actually. So whatever sometimes meat is allowed, that will be stated later on also. But it is only for after sacrifice, and there are other rules. Now you see, he who eats the flesh of any animal is called the eater of the flesh of that particular creature. He who eats fish is an eater of every kind of flesh. Let him therefore avoid fish. So this Prabhupada said, if you eat fish, you know, you get the sin of eating all the other animals. This is from Manusmriti 5:15. Then 5:16, but the fish called Pathina and that called Rohita may be eaten if used for offerings to the gods or to the mains. Mains means forefathers, Pitra. Yeah. If used for offerings to the gods or the mains, one may eat likewise Ragivas, Simhatundas, and Sasalkas on all occasions. So it looks like you see some of the fish can be eaten in certain, and it is always tied to the rituals. If it is done with the rituals, then it can be eaten. Hmm? And mind you, this is to the forefathers. That is exactly the Palapaitrikam. The offering of meat to the forefathers is one of the five things that are Kalau Pancha Vivarjayat. In Kali Yuga, it has to be given up. It cannot be done. It should not be done. And cow sacrifice, horse sacrifice. How can you sacrifice a cow? That's like cow slaughter, right? But no, it was not. And let's read. It will all be given here now. Then next, let him not eat solitary or unknown beasts and birds, though they may fall under the categories of eatable creatures, nor any five-toed animals. The porcupine, the hedgehog, the iguana, the rhinoceros, the tortoise, and the hare they declare to be eatable. For the Brahmanas, this is. Likewise, those domestic animals that have teeth in one jaw only, excepting camels. A twice born man who knowingly eats mushrooms, a village pig, garlic, a village cock, onions, or leeks will become an outcast. He who unwittingly partakes of any of these six shall perform a samtapana, krikra, or a lunar penance, chandrayana, not kandrayana. There is also chikra, I think, not kikra. Chandrayana of ascetics. In case he who has eaten any other kind of forbidden food, he shall fast for 1 day and a night. Once a year, a Brahmana must perform the Shrikra penance in order to atone for unintentionally eating forbidden food, but for intentionally eating forbidden food, he must perform the penances prescribed specially. Beasts and birds recommended for consumption may be slain by Brahmanas for sacrifices and in order to feed those whom they are bound to maintain. For Agastya did this of old in the ancient times. So again, These birds and beasts that Brahmana can eat is those who are used for, um, this sacrifices. And these Brahmanas are not usually Vaishnavas. Vaishnavas don't even eat this, hmm, even those days. But these are all karma kanda thing. So they may eat, and that is sacrificial offerings of the animals. Then it goes on 523. For in ancient times, the sacrificial cakes were made of the flesh of eatable beasts and birds at the sacrifices offered by Brahmanas and Kshatriyas. All lawful hard or soft food may be eaten, though stale, after having been mixed with fatty substances, and so may the remains of sacrificial viands. But all preparations of barley and wheat, as well as preparations of milk, may be eaten by twice born men without being mixed with fatty substances, though they may have stood for a long time. Thus has the food allowed and forbidden to twice born men been fully described. I will now propound the rules for eating and avoiding meat. One may eat meat when it has been sprinkled with water, while mantras were recited, when brahmanas desire one's doing it, when one is engaged in the performance of a rite according to the law, and when one's life is in danger. So this is when meat can be eaten, when it has been sprinkled with water. Not just sprinkled with water, this is prokshana, it is called. It is part of the sacrificial process, not just like, any just wantonly killing, slaughterhouse. No, you can't do that. And this is even these were followed by brahmanas or not of very high grade. Others did not. I mean, Vaishnava brahmanas, they never did. Narad Muni never ate meat. Whether which yuga or whether it's Kali Yuga or Satya Yuga, you will never find Narad Muni doing that. So this is for, Karma Kanda section of the brahmanas. So there are these injunctions in the Manusmriti. But again, these has to be understood according to time, place, and circumstance. Not in Kali Yuga. These sacrifices itself cannot be performed. What to speak of eating their meat? Nowadays it's just killing, slaughtering. That is totally different from the sacrifices, and that will be also explained. Okay. Um, the Lord of creatures, Prajapati, created this whole world to be the sustenance of the vital spirit. Both the immovable and the movable creation is food of the vital spirit. So it looks like, it can be eaten. Well, it can be eaten by certain classes of species. For carnivorous beasts like lions and tigers or even dogs, they may eat. So that is ordained for them by Krishna. And in sacrificial performances for brahmanas or for humans. What is destitute of motion is the food of those endowed with locomotion. That means basically charanam annam achara. So those which are destitute of motion means those who cannot move. They are the food for those who can move. This is very similar to the Bhagavatam verse. Ahastani sahastanam apadani chatushpadam phalguni tatra mahatam jivo jivasya jivanam. So this, so the weak is the subsistence for the strong. So in this way, what is destitute of motion is the food for of those endowed with locomotion. That means those which cannot move are the food for those which can move. Animals without fangs are the food for of those with fangs or teeth. Those without hands of those who possess hands. So those without hands are the food of those who possess hands, and the timid of the bold. The timid creatures are the food for the bold. So this is the rule of the world. Jivo jivasya jivanam. One living entity has to subsist on another living entity for its food. The eater who daily even devours those destined to be his food commits no sin. For the Creator Himself created both the eaters and those who are to be eaten for those special purposes. So whatever is our ordained food, if we eat that, there is no sin. But that also Krishna says in a different, he gives a higher instruction, which is यज्ञशिष्टाशिनः सन्तो मुच्यन्ते सर्वकिल्बिषये भुञ्जते ते त्वघं पापा ये पचन्ते आत्मकारणात्. Even if we eat those food which is destined for us, but if we don't offer it in sacrifice to Krishna, and that is sin. Now, 531. The consumption of meat is befitting for sacrifices. That is declared to be a rule made by the gods, but to persist in using it on other occasions is said to be a proceeding worthy of Rakshasas. Now, this is now getting more clearer. The consumption, let me read that again. The consumption of meat is befitting for sacrifices. That is declared to be a rule made by the gods, but to persist in using it on other occasions is said to be a proceeding worthy of Rakshasas. He who eats meat when he honors the gods and manes, I mean forefathers, commits no sin. And this is Palapaitrika. Pitra means forefathers. Paitrika means of the or for the forefathers. Palapaitrika means this meat for the forefathers. This is the thing that is, if we eat that, then commits no sin. So this was allowed in previous yugas, just like niyoga was allowed in previous yugas, where a brother's wife, I mean, a man can beget children in his brother's wife. So, I mean, if you see from the today's point of view, it is totally immoral. I mean, what is this? Brother having a sex with his brother's wife? What is this going on? So, but it was not performed in the same way. But people had that mental control in those days, and Brahmanas used to have the power to chant those mantras to bring a new life in the sacrificed animal, and therefore this meat actually becomes a sacrificial offering and is fit to be eaten. That is all not possible in Kali Yuga. And because these kind of quotations were there in Manusmriti and also Rig Veda, this person has quoted, they were misused, and that's why Buddha had to come. In fact, because they Vedas say we can kill animals, we will just kill animals. See, Manusmriti says, Rig Veda says this says that says, and they started killing animals without any rules and regulations. And this is where Buddha came to stop that. And he is an incarnation of Krishna. He came to stop animal killing because there is a wrong understanding of the Vedic injunctions. So to use it, and Vivekananda says the opposite. Oh, after Buddha, then there's vegetarianism started. Otherwise, everybody was eating meat. So he's not a good Hindu who does not eat beef. That was the rule before. He was saying like that. This is rubbish. Because of people like him, I think so. Buddha came when they were mass slaughtering animals in the name of so-called religious life. So Buddha wanted to stop that because that's exactly what Vivekananda is doing. He is vehemently, in fact, I have read because of this issue of Amogalila and all these things. I actually read some of the quotations of Vivekananda about meat. One student asked him, one of his own students, "Can I eat meat?" Please go ahead and eat meat. Now in India, everybody is starving and poor and hungry, and so many people are dying. I can't see people dying. This is tamasic, that we are dying of disease and all this. This is very more of ignorance, tamasic. So we have to rise to sattvagun, but in the middle there is rajasic, more of passion, and that's what we need. That's what India needs now, right now. That we need the rajasic energy, and for that, please, everybody must eat meat without any hesitation. Please eat meat. He gave a order to his student, and this is his understanding, and he's using these things, these quotations, to say that meat was common among things. Only after Buddhism it became this vegetarian thing and all. So that is his argument. But here it is totally different. And because of this kind of interpretations, only the Buddha came. Because I think there were many people like this Vivekananda who were talking nonsense. And that's exactly why Buddha came to stop. And now again Vivekananda says, oh, the Buddha came and therefore. Buddha came because of people like Vivekananda who misinterpreted the Vedas and started animal killing. This is the nonsense. So, um, so he who eats meat when he honors the gods and manes commits no sin, whether he has bought it or himself has killed the animal or has received it as a present from others. But it is only in these sacrifices. A twice born man who knows the law must not eat meat except in conformity with the law, for if he has eaten it unlawfully, he will, unable to save himself, be eaten after death by his victims. That means that animal will kill him. That is exactly now will be mentioned. the definition of meat, mamsa. And 534. After death, the guilt of one who slays deer for gain is not as great as that of him who eats meat for no sacred purpose. Means the guilt of the person who eats meat for no sacred purpose is very, very great. You know. But a man who, being duly engaged to officiate or to dine at a sacred rite, refuses to eat meat, becomes after death an animal during 21 existences. So this karma kandya, rules that he has to eat meat, and if he refuses, then he becomes after death an animal during 21 lifetimes. So now this is the 530 and 35 were quoted by that Vivekananda follower. 530 is the eater who daily even devours those destined to be his food commits no sin, for the Creator himself created both the eaters and those who are to be eaten for those special purposes. And 535, but a man who are duly engaged to officiate or dine at a sacred rite refuses to eat meat becomes after death an animal during 21 existences. But there is more to it than these injunctions also. We will go to that later. Let's finish this Manusamhita part, Manusmriti part. A Brahmana must never eat the flesh of animals unhallowed by mantras, but obedient to the primeval law, he may eat it consecrated with Vedic texts. If he has, now 537, if he has a strong desire for meat, he may make an animal of clarified butter or of flour and eat that, but let him never seek to destroy an animal without a lawful reason. That means mock meat, like Chinese, this is very common, mock meat. Uh, that mock meat is even authorized by Manusmriti. If you really want to, if you have a strong desire for meat, make an animal out of ghee, if you can, or butter, something like that, or made of flour. And that's what that mock meat is all about. It's made of flour. So at least eat that, but never let him seek to destroy an animal without a lawful reason. Then he said, as many hairs as the slain beast has, so often indeed will he who killed it without a lawful reason suffer a violent death in future births. That means if the animal he has killed has 1000 hairs on it, hairs, 1000 lifetimes he has to be killed, a violent death in the future. Now, which animal has only 1000 hairs? Millions each animal. So just imagine. So Manusmriti is not condoning animal killing. Oh, do it, yeah, everybody can eat meat. No. You see how they're misquoting these things. So we must know these arguments very, very well and face these rascals who are misrepresenting the Vedas. Now let's read further. Swayambhu, who is Brahma, the self-existent, himself created animals for the sake of sacrifices. Sacrifices have been instituted for the good of this whole world. The slaughtering of beasts. Hence, the slaughtering of beasts for sacrifices is not slaughtering in the ordinary sense of the word. This is the thing. And the explanation continues in the next verse. Herbs, trees, cattle, birds, and other animals that have been destroyed for sacrifices receive, being reborn, higher existences. You see, they receive higher existences that have been offered for sacrifice. This is very different from a slaughter. So that's why those beasts which are slaughtered for the sacrifices is not slaughtering in the ordinary sense of the word. Avadha. Vadho avadha. You see the Sanskrit. I don't know if you can read it. Yagne vadho avadha. In the matter of sacrifices, in the yajna, when they are slaughtered, it is not slaughter in the ordinary sense of the word. So this cow slaughter, horse slaughter, they are not just slaughtering. It is not cow slaughter, cow sacrifice, horse sacrifice. It's not the ordinary slaughter. It's very different. And they immediately get higher bodies, humans, or even demigods. And even it is said not only of the slaughtered animals, but even the herbs, trees. So even if we so-called kill the animal, or sorry, plants, like the potato, for example, we have to uproot the plant, right? Or carrots, or other roots. They also achieve higher existences. Or if we have to take some flower from the plant, fruits, or flower, they all get higher existences, higher births, very higher births, human body. Immediately they jump, the whole evolutionary cycle and come to human life. How much benefit is that? Uh, so this is very different. And anyway, Krishna says, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. Krishna never encourages this meat offerings. No, he does not want meat offerings. He wants only in the vegetarian category and milk, dairy products. So these things we can give to Krishna offering. So these meat offerings that are done, these are all karma kanda. Palapaitrikam, all this Pitra Puja, Devata Puja and all these things. These are in the karma kanda section, not in the Vaishnava section. And even then, they have to be only done for sacrifices, not simply wanton killing. You can't equate this to buying meat of the supermarket and saying, okay, this is, meat is allowed. Manusmriti says we can eat meat. Oh, we can eat meat of this bird and that bird and this animal, that animal. So I will buy the meat of that bird and this bird, this animal, and I will eat it. That is nonsense. This still it has to be in the sacrifice only, not any other. Otherwise, as many hairs, if it is as many hairs as the body has of that animal, that many times you will be subject to violent death in the future births. Okay. Now, in offering the honey mixture, that means the madhuparka, to a guest, at a sacrifice and at the rites in honor of the mains, that means the forefathers, but on these occasions only may an animal be slain. That rule Manu proclaimed. So I don't understand this madhuparka offering to a guest, and at that time the animal is slaughtered. Again, these are things which are done in other yugas, and there are ways how to do it, and for what reasons. And also, these are not Vaishnava principles; these are more of karmakandya rituals, and the sacrifice and the rites in honor of the forefathers. These things, are done in other yugas, and they have certain moral principles attached to it, which we in today's Kali Yuga we cannot understand such moral principles with our view of things, because we have such a contaminated mind, so we cannot understand those things. Like Yoga is a perfect example. We cannot understand how it can be lawful that a man can beget in his brother's wife. Which brother would? I mean, which man would? Where it will be accepted? This kind of thing. So it is unimaginable in today's context. Yes, but in those days, it was acceptable. Hmm. But it has to be done in the proper way. Hmm. Now, a twice born man who, knowing the true meaning of the Vedas, slays an animal for these purposes causes both himself and the animal to enter a most blessed state. Most blessed state means, again, let me tell you one thing. These kinds of flowery language of the Vedas are not the real fruit of the Vedas. Oh, most blessed state. What is the most blessed state? Oh, Krishna consciousness. No, no, no. This thing, just to encourage them to do, because those people who really want to eat animals, the Vedas encourage in this way. This kind of language is used in the Vedas for encouraging such people. Karma Kanda section. That's why Vedavada Ratah Partha Nanyadastiti Vadinaha. What is that? Yamimam Pushpitam Vacham Pravadanta Avipaschitaha. They are not actually intelligent who become attracted to these kinds of statements. They are not actually the real statements of the Vedas. I'll tell you why. I'll show you those verses. Because this can be a little bit misleading, right? Oh, one slays an animal for these purposes, causes both himself and animal to enter a most blessed state. But it's actually not that blessed, honestly. It is a way to encourage the person, but it's not the real thing. Okay? Let me get to that. Okay, a twice born man of virtuous disposition, whether he dwells in his own house, with a teacher, or in the forest, must never, even in times of distress, cause an injury to any creature which is not sanctioned by the Veda. Know that injury to moving creatures and to those destitute of motion, which the Vedas has prescribed for certain occasions, is no injury at all, for the sacred law shown forth from the Veda. So, if this injury that an animal receives, in fact, now, just now we have read the other quotation from the Manusmriti where it says animals were created for being sacrificed, and in that way they attain human existence, next life. But so in that process, if there is injury to the animal, there is no injury at all, for the sacred law shown forth from Veda. But although it is said like this, it is covering the real aspect of um, the real truth of everything. And we will see why. This is actually a little bit of a flowery language, okay? But it's not the naked truth. Okay, even then it is quite clear that it's only in sacrifice in certain lawful occasions one can do this, and that too even for karma kanda things. Okay, he who injures innoxious beings from a wish to give himself pleasure never finds happiness, neither living nor dead. So if he kills those animals from a wish to give himself pleasure, never finds happiness. So nowadays people eat meat for what? To give himself pleasure. Oh, I like the taste of this meat, that meat. That is nonsense. Never finds happiness. Okay, this is totally different from. That's why we equate those sacrificial eatings to our sense gratificatory eatings. That is totally different. Just like sacrificial or dutiful sex in yoga is very different from sense gratificatory sex of husband and wife. So it's very very different. But we cannot do one without the other. Like if Niyoga was allowed, then there will be all kind of extramarital affairs, five brothers killing each other, and then all kind of things will happen. So we cannot differentiate the two. But people were so self-controlled they could do that without being influenced by lust. So we cannot equate such sacrificial eatings to sense gratificatory eatings of meat. Okay. He who does not seek to cause the sufferings, and now here you see very clear. He who does not seek to cause the sufferings of bonds and death to living creatures, but desires the good of all beings, obtains endless bliss. This is the real statement, actually. Until now, it was a flowery statement, but it's not really, really real. But this is real statement. So this is why Vedas can be a little bit confusing because they encourage the unlawful rascals who want to eat meat to somehow encourage them. Okay, you really want to eat meat? Do some sacrifices, and you will enter a most blessed state. This and that. You can eat this. You can eat that. You cannot eat this. You cannot eat. Okay, okay. There is some rules. Okay, I can eat meat. Okay, I'll do this sacrifice. So to encourage them only, but it's not the real fruit of the Vedas. It's not that by eating meat we are true followers of Vedas. No, no. That is a step in the right direction, but it's nowhere close to actual religious principles, which is at the zenith of all religion, which is Vaishnavism. This statement, which is 547, where you can see, he who does not injure any creatures attains without an effort what he thinks of, what he undertakes, and what he fixes his mind on. And 546, 547, these are all, 548 also. Let's read again 546 or 545 even. He who injures innoxious beings from a wish to give himself pleasure never finds happiness, neither living nor dead. That is 545. 546. He who does not seek to cause the sufferings of bonds and death to living creatures, but desires the good of all beings, obtains endless bliss. He who does not injure any creature attains without an effort what he thinks of, what he undertakes, and what he fixes his mind on. So you see how it is encouraged not to actually injure any creature. So although these things are mentioned in the beginning, again it ends with instructions which are more Vaishnavic, because that is the higher principles. Pravrittiresha bhutanam nivrittistu mahaphala. So then it goes on further. Meat can never be obtained without injury to living creatures. An injury to sentient beings is detrimental to the attainment of heavenly bliss. Let him therefore shun the use of meat. Now, is it not like contradictory to the previous verses? Oh, no, that injury to in the sacrifice is no injury at all. Yeah, to an extent, but it's not entirely true. Not entirely true. This now is the actual statement. So it is slowly you know taming the uncontrolled mind who wants to eat meat, who wants to do all sinful things, slowly taming the mind. That is what the Vedas offer. That's why we should not get too much um, distorted. Hey, why Vedas say like this? So sometimes the Vedas say things which they, sometimes they promise, oh, you will have this Beautiful apsaras, in heavenly planets. You can go to Nandanakanan gardens, and the gardens are so beautiful with lakes and trees and foliage and these beautiful parks and beautiful birds chirping and this and that, valleys, mountains inside the parks, inside the. It's a beautiful Nandanakanan gardens of the heavenly planets, unmatched beauty. Now, why do Vedas glorify such things? It is not that they are the things that we have to attain. These are the flowery language of the Vedas. Pushpitam Vacham, flowery language, but actually it is rubbish. For a Vaishnava, hell, even liberation is rubbish if there is no seva. He does not want these beautiful gardens and romantic adventures with the young women, apsaras. He doesn't want this. Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitam va jagadisha kamaye. So these are promises for idiots. Idiots, if they have to be slowly elevated, then yeah, you can be a good idiot here. You can enjoy your life, with these things. Eat meat and enjoy it. Sacrificial offerings, yeah, but still, let me take to the Bhagavatam verse, which gives us real deal. Okay. Of course, there is sacrificial offering, but it is not the same. It is definitely not, sinful like eating slaughterhouse meat, but it's also not the highest. It's not that this is the highest thing we should eat. No, no, no. So okay, let's read on. I think few more handful of verses remaining. Having well considered the disgusting origin of flesh and the cruelty of fettering and slaying corporeal beings, let him entirely abstain from eating flesh. 549. Quite clear, right? He who disregarding the rule given above does not eat meat like a pisacha becomes dear to men and will not be tormented by diseases. You see, he who disregarding the rule given above does not eat meat like a pisacha becomes dear to men and will not be tormented by diseases. You see, that means even these rules that are mentioned in the Manusmriti, if he disregard those rules and he does not eat meat like a pisacha, like a ghost, like a pisacha means like a bhoot, like a demon, becomes dear to man and will not be tormented by diseases. That means meat eating has diseases. That means it is encouraged to disregard the rules given above. Look at this now. So, pravrittiresha bhutanam nivrittistu mahaphala. So, it is actually encouraged to give up the meat eating completely. Disregard the rule given above, and who does not eat the meat like a pisacha becomes dear to man and will not be tormented. Then 551, you see, he who permits the slaughter of an animal, he who cuts it up, he who kills it, he who buys or sells meat, he who cooks it, he who serves it up, and he who eats it must all be considered as the slayers of the animal. Anumanta Vishasita Nihanta Kriyavikrayi Sanskarta cha Upaharta cha Khadakascha iti Ghatakaha. All of them are punishable. So these are real instructions now. So when we quote certain instructions, quotations, we have to quote the right one. Don't quote something out of context to suit your argument. This is rubbish. So these people have to be exposed. This is why I want to make a video on Vivekananda completely smashing his points and completely smashing any of the followers who come up with this kind of quotations to like unsettle the minds of those Vaishnavas who are trying to preach. We Vaishnavas also should know these things so that in what context they were quoted and what is the ultimate instruction that is actually being um, you know given out, right? Then 552, there is no greater sinner than that man who, though not worshipping the gods or the mains, seek to increase the bulk of his own flesh by the flesh of other beings. You want to eat meat? There is no greater sinner than that man who, though not worshipping the gods or the mains, seeks to increase the bulk of his own flesh by the flesh of other beings. He who during 100 years annually offers a horse sacrifice and who entirely abstains from meat obtain the same reward for their meritorious conduct. You see, he who during 100 years annually offers a sacrifice, that means every year Ashwamedha Yajna he is doing for 100 years. And the one who is abstaining from meat completely without doing any of Ashwamedha Yajna obtain the same reward for their meritorious conduct. That means Ashwamedha Yajna, how costly such yajna is very, very expensive. So to eat that horse meat, he has to perform a sacrifice which undertakes such huge expenses and huge efforts. And the mantras of chanting absolutely must be perfect without a single fault. These things are necessary for these sacrifices to even be effective. And after all that, he gets only that much merit of those who does not eat meat, abstains from meat this whole life. That means what is being said here now? That means not eating meat is the best way to go. And in 550 you can see, he who disregarding the rule given above does not eat meat like a pisacha becomes dear to men and will not be tormented by diseases. That means meat eating gives out all kinds of diseases. That's another thing we have to know from Manusmriti, this word. Right? By subsisting on pure fruit and roots and by eating food fit for ascetics in the forests, one does not gain so great a reward as by entirely avoiding the use of flesh. That means by avoiding the use of flesh entirely, one gets so great a reward that it's not okay. I do the like a ascetic, like a yogi. I eat in the forest, and sometimes I do these animal sacrifices. That is not as great a gain than compared to the one who entirely avoids eating flesh. Then this verse, this mamsaha khadati iti mamsa, there is a shorter version of it, but this is the actual full verse. Mamsa bhakshayita amutra yasya mamsam iha admyaham etat mamsasya mamsatvam pravadanti manishinaha. Me, he, mamsaha, will devour in the next world, whose flesh I eat in this life. The wise declare this to be the real meaning of the word flesh or mamsa. You see, namamsa bhakshane dosho namadye nacha maithune pravrittiresha bhutanam nivrittistu mahaphala. This is the place that this word is coming from. Pravrittiresha bhutanam nivrittistu mahaphala. There is no sin in eating meat, in drinking spirituous liquor, and in carnal intercourse or sexual intercourse, for that is the natural way of created beings. But abstention brings great rewards. You see, from here we can understand the translation is a bit off. Here they say there is no sin in eating meat because that is a natural way. But actually, the real way is mentioned in the Bhagavatam, which if I change the screen now, now after this, it is a different topic now. Next verse is all a different topic. So I will anyway change the screen now. Stop screen, share screen. Okay. So let me show you this verse. I think you all know this verse, 11.5.3. So this is how we strengthen our arguments. Oh, not this. Sorry. 11.5.11. लोके व्यवायामिषमद्य सेवा नित्या हि जन्तोर्न हि तत्र चोदना व्यवस्थितिस्तेषु विवाहयज्ञ सुराग्रहैरासु निवृत्तिरिष्टा. In this material world, the conditioned soul is always inclined to sex, meat eating, and intoxication. So nahi dosho means it looks like there is no sin in doing this. Actually, it's not like no sin. It is the it is not a fault that one is attracted to meat eating and illicit sex and gambling, because that is the way of conditioned souls. Because so that is the nature. But it is not fault means it is not that there is no fault in doing that. But to have those tendencies is not unnatural because we are conditioned in that way. But so pravritti, therefore, for such people, these kinds of pravritti marga, in which sacrificial offerings of meat and all this is recommended. But nivrittistu mahaphala, you see, that is the ultimate what is that instruction there in that whole series, right? So this we have to understand. So everywhere, although this is like glorified in flowery language, oh, it is so great, by eating meat. Actually, it's not so great. Honestly, it's not great. So that we will understand. Okay, let's read this and finish this translation. In this material world, the conditioned soul is always inclined to sex, meat eating, and intoxication. Therefore, religious scriptures never actually encourage such activities. Although the scriptural injunctions provide for sex through sacred marriage, for meat eating through sacrificial offerings, you see, there is scriptural injunctions for meat eating through sacrificial offerings, and for intoxication through the ritual cups of acceptance of ritual cups of wine. Such ceremonies are meant for the ultimate purpose of renunciation. And that's exactly what Manusmriti was doing just now we have read. It is encouraging kind of, but actually it is, meant for ultimate purpose of renunciation. Those are the most important sections or verses that one should focus on. But this man, he supported this Vivekananda, he was quoting these verses which were, in the middle of that Karmakandi section where all the flowery language was used to kind of encourage those people, those verses. But the really important verses, that was not quoted. See, this is the defect of these people. So we have to be very careful in understanding these injunctions and why such range of injunctions are mentioned. Oh, in one place it is said you have to eat meat. If he refuses, if to eat meat in a sacrificial performance, 21 generations will, 21 rebirths he will have to suffer and be slaughtered. So it's like, it looks like very very exaggerated, claim. Actually, there are exaggerations. There are exaggerations. And the reward also is a big exaggeration, as if it's the greatest, a most blessed state. What is most blessed? As if they're in Vaikuntha or what? It's not blown most blessed. Nonsense. And let's see. This is the let's few verses later. 11.5.14. ये त्वनेवं विदोषन्तः स्तब्धाः सदभिमानिनः पशून् द्रुह्यन्ति विश्रब्धाः प्रेत्य खादन्ति ते च तान्. Those sinful persons who are ignorant of actual religious principles yet consider themselves to be completely pious without compunction, I mean without any guilt, without any hesitation, commit violence against innocent animals who are fully trusting in them. In their next life, such sinful persons will be eaten by the same creatures they have killed in this world. And of course, there are other verses also where he says, "Don't you see?" I think Narada Muni instructing Prachina Barhe, "Don't you see those animals, in the sky that are being killed by you in sacrifices? They are waiting to kill you." So he says like that. So this is in the fourth canto. So in this way, there are so many injunctions, and it is not that Bhagavatam, these are only 5,000 years ago, and Puranas they contradict each other. Before this is all Rig Veda and all this Manusmriti, they are all actually permitting. Only Bhagavatam, this 5,000-year-old book only are talking about this. Before that, it was all rubbish, rubbish, absolute rubbish. Yeah, we have sufficiently proved that he is talking nonsense. And we have to know like this how to um, um, you know how to counter these arguments. We have to be strong enough to counter these arguments, and we have to absolutely smash these people. No compromise at all. No banning people for smashing, and absolutely must be smashed. Vivekananda is a nonsense, and we will expose him. That's it. And I have just done it. This argument. And I have more things to say, but now, anyway, I've already digressed, super digressed. But I think it is important because that is a hot topic right now, and my video on Vivekananda has not come out. I'm seriously thinking of a format in which I can quickly churn out videos on all these topics that come about. I'll soon announce something on that. But until then, at least you have the answers to some of these pressing questions especially because it's a hot topic, these kind of questions may come up and sometimes we may be bewildered. So when I saw this quote, I was also thinking, wow, that is quite, you know, seemingly convincing, but I was sure that he was totally misrepresenting those quotations. So I went to that part and saw the whole context of it. You know, it's clear beyond any doubt what is intended in those scriptures. Um, so going back to our Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was consoling his parents. My dear mother and father, the Lord said, it is very good that Vishrupa has accepted the sannyas order, for thus he has delivered both his father's family and mother's family. It is sometimes said that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu disapproved of the acceptance of sannyas order in this Kali Yuga because in the Shastra it is said, Ashwamedham Gavalambam Sannyasam Palapaitrikam Devarena Sudotpatyam Kalopancha Vivarjayat. In this age of Kali, 5 acts are forbidden: the offering of a horse in sacrifice, offering of a cow in sacrifice, the acceptance of the order of sannyas, offering of oblations of flesh to the forefathers, and a man's begetting children in his brother's wife. Now, 4 things we can understand: Ashwamedham, Gavalambam, Palapaitrikam, and Devarena Sudotpatim. Okay, they cannot be done with a proper mindset. What about sannyasam? Exactly the same reason. It may not be done with the proper mindset. So one has to be absolutely focused and unrelenting in his determination when he takes sannyas. There's no question. I mean, Chota Haridas was banned by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for just looking at a woman when he was sannyasi. So that is the level at which sannyasi should operate. And because this mindset is not as strong in Kali Yuga, and therefore it is not that sannyasam is wrong. No. But because we are not qualified to do such thing, it is not. You know. But it is not recommended. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself took sannyas. So what? I mean, he is going against this rule? No. Because sannyasam is meant for Krishna's service. That is the real meaning of sannyas. And the only reason sannyas was, forbidden was because people will not be of the right mindset to do it. Will not be in the right, you know, will not have the right determination in this Kali Yuga. Everything is so weak-minded. So therefore it is prohibited because they're not qualified to do such a thing. But the Ashwamedham Gavalambham, that is not because of qualification. That is also because there's no qualified Brahmanas to chant those mantras and all. And also, there will be a huge misunderstanding in this whole thing, and there will be equated to, that's exactly why Buddha came. He stopped. So there are 2 things. The Brahmanas are not qualified to chant adequately the mantras, and there will be a huge misunderstanding and equating sacrifice to slaughter, and that is totally different. And then it will encourage more and more slaughtering rather than sacrifices, because that's how the material world goes. Krishna comes, sets the principles right, and then sakale neha mahata yogo nashta parantapa. With passing of time, these things will be forgotten and the yoga is destroyed. The knowledge is destroyed, and what takes over is the complete opposite of what was intended. So, knowing well that these things will happen, these things are kalopancha vivarchayat. Devarena sutotpatyam, this niyoga, also the same thing. Not qualified to keep the mind in a sane condition, and everything will happen. And so, again, it is not allowed in Kali Yuga. But for preaching's sake, for Krishna seva, sannyasam is allowed. But one must uphold. Not, you see what happened in ISKCON. Sannyas is falling left, right, center like dominoes. Dominoes. That's never the principle of sannyas. Now, even if somebody falls down, of course, Prabhupada, kind of encouraged him, but that again, sometimes Prabhupada, the devotees quote him, oh, Prabhupada was so merciful, he did not shun anyone, even if he was sannyasi and fell down. He said, that's how merciful we must be. Don't make that the standard. In the guise of advocating for the merciful nature of accepting even fallen souls, don't standardize the fall downs of sannyasis. Don't do that. Um, so, we have to be absolutely strict with the whole thing. Prabhupada gave many things, he adjusted and he tolerated. It's not that we should glorify, yes, Prabhupada we should glorify, but it is not that, oh, Prabhupada was so accepting. But actually, what is the underlying thing they're saying? Sannyasi can fall down actually. Prabhupada still accepted. Prabhupada, therefore, indirectly they want to say this. Prabhupada authorized the following fall down of sannyasis because he accepted them. See, he is accepting a fallen down sannyasi. How can you say that ISKCON sannyasi have fallen and you are going against them? Prabhupada accepted them. Here you are against these sannyasis. Don't standardize the wrong thing. Okay, Prabhupada is merciful, yes. Don't take advantage of his mercy and you know try to prove that he actually advocated for the downfall of sannyasis, or he rather allowed the downfall of sannyasis. He still accepted them. He never like kicked them out. He kicked them out. I mean, he did not kick them out. That is mercy. But I should be guilty enough. I should feel so bad that Prabhupada is still accepting me even after I have fallen down, and there should be a repentance. But if we just glorify Prabhupada, oh, Prabhupada was so accepting, so I can do any damn thing I like. Don't quote Prabhupada's merciful nature just to, prove a point where my own sense gratification is protected. Rubbish nonsense. This is what today ISKCON they're doing. This is what they're doing. Unfortunate, but true. This is true. We cannot we cannot standardize this. We have to have stringent um, action against this. And it must be very clear to people that this is not allowed. At the same time, one can be merciful to the person who has fallen down. Like, okay, you quiet down. You don't do any more any big seva. You just quietly chant or something, lead a secluded life or something like that. Allow him to do something, but so that people will also know that okay, he's given a chance, but also he's not given a prominent position to show that this is not the standard. But being merciful to him by allowing him to do some service on the side, seclusion, whatever. There is some arrangement done for his. So that should be the thing. It should never be shown like, oh, it is okay, fine. I mean, nowadays, ISKCON devotees, they are saying things like, this is. I actually have to make a video on that also. I mean, these are all very pending for a long, long, long overdue. But I'll do it. Please bless me so that I can do it. So this ISKCON devotee, he was having a debate with me, text on text. So he wrote me an email, and he gave me a PDF quoting things like, oh, it's okay that if a guru falls down, disciple will deliver the guru. If your guru falls down, don't worry. You deliver the guru. Example, Suniti, mother of Dhruv Maharaj, was kind of a guru because she asked him, she said that Vishnu is to be found in the forest, and he went to the forest and he eventually became great devotee. And so, Vartma Pradarshaka Guru, the one who showed the path. So and later on, he delivered the mother because mother was not as advanced. Dhruv Maharaj became very advanced. So, mother became, and in the purport, Prabhupada writes, I hope some of my disciples also will carry me back to Godhead. Prabhupada is writing in a humble tone. This rascal, he was quoting this thing that saying, see, Prabhupada is saying, if anything happens, my disciples will save me. That means disciple can save Guru. That means if your Guru fallen down, you must save him. I don't know what, I mean, they have given up on their brains, I think. Their brains have given up on them and coming up with all this demoniac nonsense. So this is the twisted understanding it has become now. And another person says, another guru, one of the gurus in ISKCON, he said, it doesn't matter if your guru falls down, just take another guru and move on. That's it. Array, if you're on the path, if you're going from A to B, you're going in a bus and the bus breaks down halfway, You don't, oh, my bus broke down. You just take another bus and go from there on. That's it. If a guru falls down, take another bus. Broken bus, take another bus. Broken guru, take another guru. That's it. And if that guru also falls on, every guru falls on, you deliver the guru. This is the bloody nonsense philosophy of ISKCON today. Okay? This is rubbish that is going on in the name of so-called Guru Tattva. And they have mastered the Guru Tattva. This is their Guru Tattva. We have to be absolutely exposing this nonsense. And this is how Sampradaya is followed. Krishna said, Evam parampara praptam imam rajar suvedo sakale niyam mahata yoga nashta parantapa. This is exactly how it happens. Twisted, nonsense, rubbish interpretation of the Vedic literature and going ahead with it. What authorizing or voted gurus. Huh? Which guru was selected in a parampara by votes? Today GBC selects them by votes. Two-third majority, he can become guru. GBC, if they vote two-third majority, he can become guru. What nonsense is that? Huh? Come on. Anyway. So these things are forbidden in Kali Yuga. Nevertheless, so reading on in the purport, nevertheless, we see that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself accepted sannyas and approved of the sannyas of his elder brother Vishwarup. It is clearly said here, Bhala hoilo. Vishwarup sannyas korilo pitrukula matrakula dui uddharilo. Therefore, should it be thought that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made statements that are contradictory? No. Actually, he did not. It is recommended that one accept sannyas to dedicate his life for the service of the Lord. And everyone must take that kind of sannyas, for by accepting such sannyas, one renders the best service to both his paternal and maternal families. Now they say, oh, you take sannyas, who will take care of your parents? Not of your parents, whole Kula, the dynasty, Khandanpura, they will be delivered. But one should not accept the sannyas order of the Mayavad school, which has practically no meaning. We find many Mayavadi sannyasis simply loitering in the street, thinking themselves Brahman or Narayan, and spending all day and night begging so they can fill their hungry bellies. Mayavadi sannyasis have become so degraded that there is a section of them who eat everything just like hogs and dogs. Oh my god, this is even worse. It is such degraded sannyas that is prohibited in this age. Because they're not qualified. Actually, Srila Shankaracharya's principles for the acceptance of sannyas were very strict. But later, the so-called Mayavadi sannyasis became degraded because of their false philosophy, which propounds that by accepting sannyas, one becomes Narayan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejected that kind of sannyas. But the acceptance of sannyas is one of the items of the Varnashram Dharma. How then can it be rejected? Now, I tell you another story. I just read the conversation. I think some of you must have also read. Prabhupada was saying that, there was, I think it was, I think it was done as a YouTube short in our channel, I think. So Prabhupada was saying that, there was one man, he was like the Prabhupada's father's age, something like that. So he respected him, and that man was very religious also, but he used to eat meat. So Prabhupada asked, why are you eating this? Why should you eat meat? Like, no, it is all Narayan. One Narayan eating another Narayan. One Narayan is being absorbed by another Narayan. What is there? All Narayan. Mayavad rascal. So this is the nonsense there, philosophy. This is the nonsense. So this kind of sannyas should not exist. Then if that is Narayan, this is Narayan, then I will cut your throat and behead you. One Narayan beheaded another Narayan. What is gone? That's it, no? Is that acceptable? আমি তো করিব তোমার দুহার সেবন শুনিয়া সন্তুষ্ট হইল পিতা মাতার মন. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu assured his parents that he would serve them, and thus the minds of his father and mother were satisfied. But then he also did not. After Jagannātha Miśra passed away, then he took sannyas. Now, did he not keep his promise? He promised his mother, okay, that was good, okay, he did good, well, at least, okay, managed the situation. But why did then he take sannyas and the mother was 70 years old, father was not there, wife was 16 years old? What is this? This is where one does not understand. Those who are, materially attached, they cannot understand these things. Yeah, it is not normally possible by any ordinary man. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could do it. And if anybody else, sometimes it is also this. This is another argument I have come across. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu he can do. Ah, Prabhupada he can do. Ah, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur they can do. Ah, Gaur Kishoras Babaji he can do. We are not that pure, so we cannot do. So we should not go away from our home. We should sit down in the home. Tishtha, in Telugu we say Tishtha Vesu Kurchotam. That means we sit down, establish ourselves at home, and do homely duties, chant Hare Krishna on the side. That is our level. So because we are not on the level of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, not on the level of Bhaktisiddhanta, not on the level of Sridhar Swami, not on the level of Narad Muni, or some great Chatur Kumaras. We are not in that level, so we will just do normal things. So nobody should join the temple, nobody should become brahmachari, nobody should become sannyas. Everybody sit down at home, and that's how we will carry on our Krishna consciousness. Who will run the temple? Who will run the temple? Now, who will run the traveling and preaching? Now, Sundar Gopal Prabhu, His Grace Sundar Gopal Prabhu, is in India traveling. If he was married man, would he be able to do it? Of course, it is great that to see Nimanita Prabhu do it, traveling here and there as a grihastha. That requires a different level of dedication. Who can live like that without a job, and which wife will actually cooperate in traveling here and there? They want a house, you know. People spend their whole lives earning money to establish. Oh, ghar banna hai, car banna hai. This is their they want to have a house, bangla. They want to have car, established position, some settled permanent house, this and that. And here, there are grahasthas. They're moving around. Huh? And of course, that is very rare, extremely rare. And they also can't move as much as how His Grace Nagopal Prabhu wants to move, right? Now, Prabhu is saying he's now in India. After this, he wants to go to Australia. After that, he wants to go to Russia. After that, he wants to go to America. He wants to travel. Just his life, he just wants to spend traveling and preaching. Now, who will do that? Now, today, I'm not saying I'm some greatly renounced person. I'm still, trying to learn only. But you see, if I had a family, I'm not saying that grahasthas cannot. I really respect. I have all respect for grahasthas because despite all kinds of distractions they are focusing on Krishna, I cannot do. I am not entering grihastha ashram, and I pray to all devotees, please bless me so that I don't enter grihastha ashram at all in my life. Only because I find myself incapable, completely incapable of handling such a life. I cannot. So I see the grihasthas as very capable that they can do that and this also. I cannot. So I being incapable, I choose to remain here in this ashram, and I seek the blessings of all Vaishnavas so that I remain in this ashram. Now my point is, if I was encumbered by other duties, I would not have engaged in giving this class for this long. I will have nagging going on. So it's not possible. I mean, there's so many limitations that come with Grihastha ashram. And some people can take it, like Nimanita Prabhu, I really hats off to him. I mean, he's doing phenomenally well. I'm not saying anybody else is not doing well. Don't get me wrong, but he's a shining example. But it is much more conducive if one is renounced. So why should we, if somebody is making a move of surrender to Krishna, we should not criticize that as, oh, he has left his parents, how the parents will feel. Think from their perspective, what will happen to them. Why? Then what will happen to Hiranyakashipu? You think from Hiranyakashipu's perspective, na? Oh, brother died. Own son is glorifying the person who killed his brother. Oh, such a tragedy. And look at Ravana. Whole family destroyed. Brother killed, sons killed. He himself was killed, and his wife was widowed. How many people died in Lanka? Swarna Lanka became Bhasma Lanka. Golden Lanka became Ashes Lanka. How sad. Tragedy. If you see from their perspective, it is a tragedy. Of course it will be. And they deserve such tragedy. Of course, I'm not saying every father and mother is Hiranyakashipu, but many. Mini. Yeah, I'm not Prahalad. My minuscule portion of Prahalad maybe. Because we are trying to be devotees, at least in some way. And there are minuscule versions of Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, whatever. Of course, if they take up Krishna consciousness and if they accept, that is totally different. But if they put hindrances and are against and this and that, then it's a version of that. Krishna showed, of course, the big Hiranyakashipu and all that, but everyone is, small Ravana, small Hiranyakashipu in this material world. We all are. We are trying to mend ourselves now, not like really big Prahlad who came from the spiritual world and delivering everybody, but trying our best to become a devotee. So when there is this, if you see from the perspective of the non-devotee, of course it is tragical. You will have all. Why should you think from that perspective? Why not think from Prahlad's perspective? Oh, he's surrendering despite he disobeyed his father. Now the father will think. If we see from the father's perspective, his brother died, and then the son is glorifying the killer of the brother, and he's not he's disobedient to the father. How tragic! But is this tragic? Which perspective we should see? From Prahlad's perspective. Why not from Prahlad's perspective? And here Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying Krishna's own words. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna, his own words. Mata Pita Duir. What is Dohar Mata what? Matra Kula Pitra Kula. Pitra Kula Matra Kula Dui Uddharila. Yeah. By taking sannyas, both not only Mata Pita but their Kula, full Khandan. I mean, whole dynasty will be purified. Pranam Punat Sakulam Natu Bhurimana. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu assured his parents that he would serve them, and thus the mind of his father and mother was satisfied. Now, he said he would serve them, but then he broke his promise. Later, of course, he served them even then. But serve them means as Paramatma, he is there in everyone's heart, so in that way. But he took sannyas. Say, he is not even following his own promise. So this is the thing. In material life, sometimes to manage the emotions of people, we have to say some, pacifying words. They don't have to be exactly true. You don't have to stand by them. What you have to stand by is Krishna consciousness. You know, that is mentioned in Bhagavatam. ये वामयीशे कृतसौहृदार्था जनेषु देहं भरवार्तिकेषु गृहेषु जायात्मजरातिमत्सु न प्रीतियुक्ता यावदर्थाश्च लोके. Those who are interested in reviving Krishna consciousness and increasing their love of Godhead do not like to do anything that is not related to Krishna. They are not interested in mingling with people who are busy maintaining their bodies, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. They are not attached to their homes, although they may be householders, nor are they attached to wives, children, friends, or wealth. At the same time, they are not indifferent to the execution of their duties. Such people are interested in collecting only enough money to keep the body and soul together. Now, a more relevant verse, 7:14:6. ज्ञातयः पितरौ पुत्रा भ्रातरः सुहृदोपरे यद्वदन्ति यदिच्छन्ति चानुमोदेत निर्ममः. An intelligent man in human society should make his own program of activities very simple. If there are suggestions from his friends, children, parents, brothers, or anyone else, he should externally agree, saying, yes, that is all right. But internally, he should be determined not to create a cumbersome life in which the purpose of life will not be fulfilled. So, there is an amount of dishonesty, which is glorified here, not condemned. Yes, that is all right. Externally agree, but internally not agree. Internally, one must be determined. So, is that not hypocrisy, like showing one feeling to others and then having another feeling? Well, you may term it as hypocrisy, but it is transcendental hypocrisy, let's say. So, that is allowed. Um, so, to pacify certain feelings, sometimes, some nice words have to be spoken. Although they may not be entirely, factual or true, the main thing that we should not give up is our vow to serve Krishna. That vow is more important than any vow to any parent or devata or this or that and anything. That vow is more important. Mallika Dasi. Mataji. Thank you for addressing why Lord Chaitanya promised not to take sannyas, but then he did. This has been on my consciousness for a while. Absolutely. So, and let's look at another verse which, what is that verse? Um, oh, oh, yeah. 8th canto, 19th chapter, 43rd verse. स्त्रीषु नर्मविवाहे च वृत्त्यर्थे प्राणसङ्कटे गोब्राह्मणार्थे हिंसायां नानृतं स्याज्जुगुप्सितम्. In flattering a woman to bring her under control, in joking, in a marriage ceremony, in earning one's livelihood, when one's life is in danger, in protecting cows and Brahmanical culture, or in protecting a person from an enemy's hand, falsity is never condemned. So, lying or some kind of a, you know, white lies is not condemned. So, so to bring a woman under control, sometimes force doesn't work. Most of the time, force doesn't work. But by flattery, sometimes can be done. Most of the time, and that's how they come under control. Now, although that's kind of a bit of a manipulation, but that manipulation is for the good of both her and also the. Just like for example, I mean Kashyapa Muni. Diti wanted a son who will kill Indra. Kashyapa was shocked. Arre, what kind of a desire is this? But instead of scolding her, he said, "Oh, very nice lady, you are excellent, and you are such a pativrata, and you really want a good son. So I'll tell you some vrata you should do, so that you will get a very good son." Ah, yes, I will do. I will do. Yes. What is the vrata and the whole payavrata and all this? Not payavrata. I think something else also. The whole so many rules to be followed. I think it's the payavrata. I think. Um, then as she was doing the Vishnu, I mean, and all the rules were actually Vaishnavic rules. You do this vrata, you will get a very good son. Your desires will be fulfilled. Ah, yes, I will do, I will do, I will do. What is that? All Vishnu, worship. So by doing that worship, she became more and more purified, and then eventually her desire was changed. So that kind of, and not only for women. I mean, mostly for women, but also Prabhupada used this technique also to manage. Sometimes it is necessary. It's a little bit of a diplomacy, but it is not out of feeling of trying to manipulate for one's own, gain, and it's like or politicking. Not for that end. It's diplomacy in the Krishna's service. Being diplomatic. For example, I'll give you an example. Um, George Harrison was doing a lot of service by spreading the holy name, and at one point he wanted to get initiated by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada said, you are like my uninitiated disciple. Although you are uninitiated, you are like my disciple." So he expertly managed the situation in which he encouraged that George Harrison, but he did not initiate him. And why did he not initiate him? Why did he leave him uninitiated? That could have been, the greatest conquest, right? A pop singer, taking over the world stage, that kind of a person becoming a disciple of Prabhupada, and Prabhupada's prestige would have been increased even more. Oh, he's the guru of George Harrison, things like that. But Prabhupada did not initiate him. He said, "You are like my uninitiated disciple. Go on singing." The reason was, George Harrison had a very good, heart. I mean, he was, absolutely, he loves Prabhupada. And he was chanting Hare Krishna, and he was reading the books, everything. But some of the principles he was unable to follow. Sometimes with intoxicants, sometimes with women. So Prabhupada knew that. And Prabhupada wanted to encourage him in Krishna's service, and hopefully he will come out. So for that time he was not ready for initiation. But Prabhupada did not say, no, no, I will not initiate you. You have to follow this thing. That George Harrison also knows he has to follow this thing, and he knows his shortcomings as well. So by Prabhupada saying this, he was satisfied that Prabhupada was accepting him, and at the same time, um, he managed the situation. Prabhupada managed the situation expertly. Now, sometimes devotees quote this kind of examples to protect their lack of surrender. See, to surrender to Krishna, it's a bit of a leap one has to take. And it can be, if we are attached materially, it can be a little bit frightening. And it sometimes it will disturb our social status quo with our parents, sometimes with our family. It does disturb. Just like Vishwarupa leaving the house now, Jagannātha Miśra and Sachimata became like upset or kind of disturbed. So the disturbance is not unnatural. It is very natural. It will happen. So fearing any such disturbance, one may not take, and one himself may not be as surrendered. Again, this diplomatic behavior by Srila Prabhupada to encourage him, at the same time not accept him in the full fold of devotional service as a disciple, as a full-on disciple. That is sometimes quoted as the way a devotee should behave, and that's how merciful one must be. And therefore, although I'm not surrendered, you should handle me the way Prabhupada handled George Harrison or people like that. And if you don't do that, you're not merciful enough, you're not a real devotee, I won't be with you. I won't be in this temple or in this movement. That is where the problem lies. If we use that to protect our sense gratification, to protect our lack of surrender, or, oh, see, George Harrison was not surrendered by, but, Prabhupada engaged him in, doing, spreading the holy name or whatever. At the same time, he did not initiate him, and he, kept that nice, that, this. Yeah, it's nice, but is it ultimately beneficial for somebody to not get initiated? Ultimately, what is actually, do I want to go back to Vaikuntha or not? Am I serious or not? Ultimately, the question boils down to that. Oh, because Prabhupada sanctioned this, so therefore it is okay to be like that. Is that the message that Prabhupada is saying, or he's somehow accommodating him and encouraging him? But of course, that's not the standard. Hopefully, he will come to the standard, and until then, this is the like the transformatory stage. So he's just allowing for him to transform. But to another person, there are other instances. People know Prabhupada's, these kind of instances become more popular somehow or other because people may like them. That kinds of brings out the merciful nature of Prabhupada. But you know what's the greater mercy? When he chastises the disciple, you know, like demanding absolute surrender. Those kinds of pastimes are also there. Those unfortunately don't become as popular because Prabhupada was angry and you know. So we should know, you know, like for example, once Prabhupada was taking a morning walk as he usually does, and Brahmananda Swami at the time he was talking many things with Prabhupada, and he was saying he was having like almost like a chat with a friend kind of mood, and it was going on and on. At one time, Prabhupada stopped and put his stick on the face of Brahmananda, and he was walking stick. He swung it and stopped right in front of Brahmananda's face. Stop it! Don't try to use the spiritual master. Brahmana was like, whoa. So that's not the way he would deal with maybe an outsider or even a person like George Harrison. Maybe George Harrison actually was very respectful. It's not that Brahmananda was not respectful. He was. But somehow he got a little bit familiar, a little bit friendly, a little bit too friendly, which one should not, because otherwise it will hamper our own progress if we become too friendly. But it's not that one should not be friendly and one should maintain a distance and should not talk to him. No, one should have the respect. One should not lose the respect and become too friendly. Then that will cause us to make offenses. So one should maintain a certain level of respect so that we actually benefit from such a relation, such a person. Because if we misbehave, then either we get a stern reaction, which we may not be able to take because of our ego, or that person may not react so sternly and may also reciprocate in a friendly way, in which case we will not benefit fully. And that's exactly what happened with Arjuna and Krishna. In the beginning, in the first chapter, Arjuna was chatting and arguing with Krishna like, friend. Nothing was being solved. And Krishna reciprocated like a friend. That's the thing. Krishna did not solve Arjuna's problem when Arjuna was ranting in the first chapter. Krishna did not, he heard him out, like he was reciprocating like that. So sometimes the devotee would just reciprocate just the way corresponding to that person's dealing. But it may not be the greatest mercy that the devotee can offer. Whereas when Arjuna says Shishyasteham sadhimam tvam prapannam, he got the full benefit of the association of Krishna. So sometimes devotees, you know, may act friendly in a way, but actually that's not the real mercy. The real mercy will come when they can actually instruct us and guide us, and we accept such instructions. Sometimes devotees want to or instruct or help or kind of guide a person, but when he sees that there's not enough reciprocation from the candidate, in the sense that he may not follow that much or he's not fully serious in following, then the devotee will stop instructing that level of, or he keeps at it and then the other person may break. Now which is more merciful? Well, who knows? If we are sharp and hard, actually that's good, but the other person cannot take it. So to allow him to be in some form of devotional service in whatever capacity he can do, sometimes diplomacy is used, and you know palatable language may be used, and like um, offenses may be tolerated, not because everything is okay. It's not okay. And that's why Advaita Acharya, that's why the glories of chastisement. Advaita Acharya made a very important point with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that you have chastised my servant, my disciple Kamalakanta Vishwas, but you have not chastised me. That means you accept him as a more closer associate to you than me. With me, you are a bit more official, um, mannerful, cordial, and I don't think that is intimacy. That is more of being maintaining me at a distance. Whereas intimate means you, whatever you feel, you will, like, no filtered, unfiltered instruction, even if it is chastisement. Whereas if it is not that intimate or not that close or not that much trust is not there, then there will be filters to the conversation, to the instruction, to the kind of conversations that we may have. So we should be a little more sensitive to this and understand the actual. It's not that devotees always want to chastise. It's not that, but we may be blocking certain chastisement from a devotee by maintaining ourselves at a distance and eventually not benefiting from that. So we have to be open to instruction. Sadhimam tvam prapannam. That is the kind of attitude we must have. Then we will benefit. Okay, so I think we have 11:15. Krishna. I thought I was ending today's class the earliest in 28 minutes, but as usual it went now 3 hours. Hari bol. Um, okay, let's go on. I don't know if I should go on more. One day. Okay, this one day means another story started. So here we will do next session. Now I will take any questions. I think there are some questions here and there. Let's take that and finish off. Can you give Sri Harinamamrita Vyakaranam classes? How can I teach something which I have not learned myself? And honestly, that's a bit of a far shot at this point. I would be interested. I don't know when I will start the reading of Harinamamrita Vyakaranam, but um, for now and for any practical purpose of preaching, reading Prabhupada's books and the word to word meaning should be enough. Should be enough. More than enough. This I bought so that I can see how Vyakaranam was nicely with Harinam and everything. So I will go through that, but I don't plan to like really master that or something like that. I'm not really. I just wanted to see how nicely Harinam was used in the Vyakaranam thing and kind of a little bit understand a little bit about it. Not for an in-depth study of it. Yeah. So I don't think I'll be conducting those classes, but let's see. Maybe we will. Basics. Um, at least pronunciation should be good. We have to learn pronunciation, and of course Vyakaranam. I don't see many devotees even pronouncing the words rightly. A lot of mistakes. They don't take notice of the diacritical marks that are there. We should be a little more observant. So I don't find it very encouraging to teach Sanskrit to people who are not even observant at what are these lines and dots mean, and don't take the effort to actually see the pronunciation guide and try to understand. I'm not encouraged to teach Vyakaranam, and I'm not any person who can teach Vyakaranam or grammar. But even if I do go through this book, I it's not priority list. It's not on my priority list at the moment. Right. Saurav, so I listened somewhere it's possibility in Chaitanya Mangal there is a prediction about Srila Prabhupada's descending in material world and how bhakti will go to sinful part of the world. There is a verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita that um, what is that? Um, I don't know if it will drag on. This class will drag on. Hmm. On the western side with the 44th. Okay. So, um, this is a long purport. Western. This is such a long purport. Um, let's see. What is the next verse? Hmm. By the will of the Supreme Gardener, the branches of Sri Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami grew many times over, expanding throughout the western countries and covering the entire region. So this is the this thing. But how bhakti will go to I think that's more specific. Maybe somewhere, I don't know where. But this is the closest I can find in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Is that prediction really talking about Srila Prabhupada? You think no? When Prithvi Dāsa Jata Nagaradigram, you think that is not about Srila Prabhupada? There are some claim that many brahmacharis are by taking artificial renunciation don't are not able to control the lust and wasting sperm. So what is the point, Prabhuji? Well, that's when they have to get married. When they cannot hold themselves, then yeah, get married. But even if one gets married, one has to spend life in brahmacharya ashram first. It's not that it's an option, either brahmachari or grihastha. No, brahmachari, whether you're going to be grihastha or not, and then after that, if you choose to become grihastha, you can become grihastha. If you choose to be a brahmachari and remain a brahmachari. So either way, it is a progressive, this thing. Not that you want to become brahmachari or grihastha, Prabhu. No, that's a nonsense question. Um, so that's why there is Naishthika brahmachari and Upakurvana brahmachari. Those who are Naishthika means whole life, and then Upakurvana, those who get married after some time. So there is that. A so-called spiritual guru is saying without a girl partner, that is wife, a man will become crazy on his life. In his life, he will always be frustrated and his mind will always be disturbed. That that says a lot about him than anybody else. Oh, okay, this is the actual one, huh? Okay, taking the sharp sword of congregation chanting of the holy name, I will root out and destroy the demoniac mentality in the hearts of the conditioned souls. Okay. If some, oh yeah, I have seen this. If some sinful people escape and giving up religious principles to go off to far off countries, then my commander in chief, Senapati Bhakta, will appear to chase them and distribute Krishna consciousness. Wonderful. Chaitanya Mangal. Yeah, of course, this is Prabhupada. Who else? Like, who else? Beautiful quotation. I think we went through this in one of the classes long back. Good to see it again. And then what is this? Are crocodiles eatable according to this text? Anyway, we have understood the whole point of the text. That whole text. You know, meat is completely not eatable for man, but for idiots, for less intelligent people, this kind of karma kanda section are there. Okay. Um, can rat be killed if they invade? Rat has many hairs. I would be careful. Yeah. So as much as possible, they should be avoided. But you know what? Sometimes these things happen. Cockroaches, rats, they infest. When our temple was in the old place, there were so many rats, so many hundreds. That whole locality was like that. Even the beside it was an old building that we were living in the Norris Road. This was in Little India. That building is still there. It's a very very old building, and it has all kinds of holes and leaks and everything going to underground and other neighboring buildings, everything. So that place was like kind of a little bit nasty. So anyway, so there were unlimited rats everywhere. So one day we had to take a decision of killing them. Of course, if we keep everything neat and clean, they won't come. But if they are there somewhere nearby, and they have children, and they expand like that. Once they start, there was a granary. I mean, we used to keep our rice and everything in that room, and that room was full of rats. So we were trying to drive them away by doing the smoke thing, but after some time they can come back. So it was not working, and they had to be killed. It's not good, but sometimes it's kind of hard decisions have to be taken. Otherwise, how can we let them infest everything? Of course, Prabhupada scolded one of his disciples. If you keep, you are rascal, why don't you keep it dirty? So that is a point. That is a point. And therefore, actually, probably the ceiling should have been done. All the leaks and holes and everything should have been done before. You know, it was not done. So sometimes these things happen, and somehow, sometimes these rats make their way, even if they're clean. They may come and if there is food available somewhere, somehow they may grab on and they will get used to it. So many times, actually, the rats were caught and left somewhere else, far off, and they were left open, let loose there. But again and again, they were multiplying at an unimaginable rate. Hundreds of rats. I remember, you know, whenever we used to take a rice sack from the room, I remember we open the door and just wait first. So much sound will come first. All the rats running. We wait first. All the sound stop, and then we will go inside and pick up the rice sack and come. That's how we used to do it. I remember very well. And those rats stool everywhere. It's like horrible, horrible. What would you do? So we had to make the decision of killing them. But anyway, soon after that, we moved out of that place, came here. So these things were there. Hmm. But I mean, if it's possible, don't let them not in at all. And if we keep our things clean, they won't come. Once they start, they will start like multiply at a exponential rate. So thank you, Prabhu, for the explanation. Now we can just give this timestamp when people come argue in YouTube comments. Yeah, I think, and a small video has to be made, a segment from that portion of that whole kind of Manusmriti thing. It can be made into a separate video as well. And if these videos are chaptered, that will also help chaptering the videos. Apart from that, if additional content pieces can be made from these videos and made into smaller segments and explaining this whole thing, that is good. Jay, no banning for smashing Prabhupada's mom. Absolutely. We will back the smashers. Narayana, it's Narayana nonsense. Prabhu, when you have a voting in system like ISKCON currently has, does that mean it's a democratic system? Bit like our governmental democratic system is a failure, voting in mode has to lead. Yeah, it's nonsense. What is this democracy in selecting guru? Where? Which Shastra they're following? I want to know. I want to see the Shastra quotation for voting. Married life is very austere. Moving for preaching while married, I can't imagine the strength required for that. Yeah, absolutely. Mm, mosquito killing, okay. Prabhupada said this. Um, if the mosquito is biting you and if you kill, that is okay. So because there is this atatai. Atatai means one who attacks with deadly weapons. Now mosquito, you may say it is not a deadly weapon, but who knows? It can be malaria, it can be anything, right? Dengue, who knows? So when it's attack and killing, yeah. Some they have this kind of death. What to do? So of course, as much as possible, no. But if the whole place is infested with mosquito, what are you going to do? That's why we have this smoke. What is this called? Um, there's a word for that. Why it slipped out of my mind? It's like that word doesn't come to my mind suddenly. Anyway, it's just not coming. So yeah. So for preaching, we cannot. Oh, mosquitoes are coming. We should not kill. Okay, let all the mosquitoes come. Let rats come. Cockroaches come. what preaching will happen? Nobody will come to the temple. So only rats, mosquitoes, and cockroaches will be there. So of course they should not be even allowed to come in. But if they do, then they have to be, yeah, repellent is a good thing. Repellent should be there as much as possible. Repellents we can use. It's I don't know. They here in Singapore they do regularly. They have this smoke, you know, that repels the mosquitoes, so they don't come. Um, Fumigation, yeah, that's the word. Fumigation. They fumigate, so that's what they do. Mm, then the mosquitoes won't come. So yeah, you can use repellents, but if the and of course if you keep the place clean, mosquitoes can very easily go away. Then they won't stay. Stagnant water should not be there. These are some of the basic things we can do, and mosquitoes will not come anymore. But rats and cockroaches are a little bit more. They won't go away so easily. If you start, even after that, you clean. If they're there once, and then they will multiply. So they should never be given a chance to come. And if they do, then sometimes Mahabharata war has to be waged, which is not desirable, but which becomes a necessity when it is out of control. That's why cleanliness is very important, which will prevent all these things. Neem leaves. Well, neem leaves for rats and cockroaches. Does that work? There's surely some natural ways to repel them. We tried a few actually. Sometime rats were very hard to, you know. Lizards are bad. There are so many in Indian houses. Yeah, lizards are everywhere, but we don't really go after them. Somehow they don't disturb so much. Rats they will eat things, and cockroaches they will infest like anything and kind of eat things and make huge numbers. If wives support spiritual life, what is problem? Because got women birth, they should suffer by thinking because of my sins I got this body. If the wife supports in spiritual life, what is the problem? It is still a problem, lesser of a problem than it depends. If a man wants to be married and if he cannot control himself, then it is problem being remaining a brahmachari. If he cannot control, if he wants to be married, if he wants to have children, sex like that, so then it's a problem being a brahmachari. If one does not want that, then it's a problem being in marriage. Woman devotee is a concession in that, lesser of a problem than a non-devotee woman. But still, it is definitely a problem. It's not without problem. But if that is better than not being able to control and mind going haywire while remaining brahmachari, then that is better. So in that way. All right, so we'll stop it here. चैतन्य चरितामृत की जय. श्री प्रभुपाद की जय. निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे. हरि हरि बोल. हरे कृष्णा.